It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason are all here. We're going to talk about Beta 2 of iOS 26 and macOS 26. It's a little toned down from the first beta. Also a big anniversary, the 5th anniversary of Apple's Silicon, and the 45th anniversary of the infamous Apple typewriter memo. All that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 978, recorded Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Half-baked bread is still dough. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news with the Apple Triad, our peerless prognosticators of perpetual pomdom. Mr. SixColors.com himself, Jason Snell, is in the house.
Purple, Leo.
Purple. The purple. You are. I should have said purple. For you. Our peerless purple prognosticator.
The code word is purple for my peerless purple pros. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And also here, he's not purple. He's black and white, basically.
And
with
red
a little
all over
green from Pixar. Mr. Andy Anako in the library where it is sweltering hot. Don't they have AC in the library?
They have really good AC in the library. So much so that it's kind of, it's, I mean, literally it's like a 10 to 15 minute walk. And I'm like, I could drive. But no, I did the right thing, and I walked. It was something real special. I'm not joking. I am not wearing a single stitch of natural fibers today. It's like the performance anti-humidity shirt and the performance anti-humidity overshirt that I'm not even wearing. I've even got the nylon pants on that are tailored to look like regular pants, but are not fooling anybody.
How nice. And how are you? How is the sweat being wicked away from you? Well,
I'm not feeling it. I mean, it's causing a problem for anybody to my left.
Everybody
or my right,
around
but, hey,
you notices.
Screw those guys.
Also here in the beautiful, powerless. No, you have power in the powered Marin County of California. Alex
at the moment.
Lindsay. At the moment, you are not.
We entered the season earlier. Usually, it was August where you start prepping for. I'm going to lose power once a week.
They call them
wind.
PSPUs, right?
I don't know.
It's PSPS. It's power
PSPS.
safety. It's a public safety power shutdown.
Public safety power shutdown.
I pronounce it WTF. That's how it comes out.
Basically, if you are unlucky enough to be Alex and be in an area where there are some lines on your, whatever circuit, whatever part of the grid that are out in wildfire country, and it's going to be windy. They now, since many of the fires in California have started because of power lines, they de-energize some of the lines, which sucks if you, like Alex,
especially
are also
the whole
on those lines.
They put almost all of those underground where I actually live, but we're on.
Oh, really?
You're on the same circuit
we're underground
as
too,
up in the hills.
That's the problem. Is it's not? It's at the head end. Hey, this is a big anniversary. This week, 5 years ago at WWDC, Apple made a surprise announcement that they were dumping Intel for Apple Silicon. It would be few more months before the Apple Silicon computers Macs came out, but this was a big story, and now we are 5 years down the road, and I have to say, I would say amazing succce. You agree?
Absolutely. It's almost as if we're reacting to the news that, oh, by the way, the iPhone is now going to be available in a rose gold that's a little bit more rose gold next year. I mean, it was for something that was so titanic in its scope. It was just, oh, well, if you have an existing Mac, it's going to work fine for the foreseeable future. If you buy a brand new Mac, it's going to work really, really great immediately without any pain points. I mean, the transition from PowerPC to Intel wasn't nearly as smooth as this, and it was pretty smooth. Good job.
In fact, so smooth that they're phasing out Rosetta 2, the compatibility layer in the next generation of macOS.
They like to use that and try to clear out the old software that's not being updated anymore. It's a little.
Yeah.
I've got to think that there's some sort of overhead or some sort of licensing cost. That the idea that if you've ever tried to run an Intel app on a Apple Silicon Mac, it wants to install Rosetta, which suggests to me that they're keeping track of Rosetta installs, and that means that they're probably paying somebody a licensing fee for something that they'd rather not do forever. And so you end up sort of saying, look, this is the end of it, and forcing people to migrate to other apps that are not.
Or, well, yeah, I mean, either the app developer can fix it, but it's not unusual. I've seen a few apps say, well, okay, that's good. We're done. Goodbye.
The good news is most of the apps that were going to be in this, I mean, there are going to be apps that die, but the fact is there was the 32-bit transition that happened with macOS Catalina. That's the one that really speaking of wildfires, that was like the prescribed burn that burned away all the stuff that was still on ancient APIs and stuff. Anything that is running on Intel 64-bit today, there's an Xcode project somewhere with that app in it. And so, yeah, there's going to be some abandonware, but I don't think there will be that much, because the Catalina thing that hurt, and people like our friend James Thompson was doing Drag Thing for years and years and years. He does pcalc, and that's still around, but Drag Thing was this great Mac utility, but it was 32-bit. It used a lot of old technology, and when they announced the Catalina transition, he said, "That's it, it's done." And a lot of apps kind of died at that point. So, and a lot of people thought, and we may have even talked about it here, a little conspiracy theory is Apple did it then so that their Apple Silicon transition would not be seen as being as cataclysmic. So they got the cataclysm out of the way a couple years early.
Oh, that makes sense. It was kind of, it was a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. So they just took the 32-bit stuff away first.
I mean, the chip, what they announced 5 years ago was in the development for a long time.
Well, it was already in the iPhone, right? And the
Exactly.
iPads. So they had Apple Silicon.
In fact, there were 2 iPad Pros that came out that were using those, A12X and A12Z, which I think Apple has even said that was their like test bed for what if we did a higher performance version of our iPad and iPhone chips, put it in the iPad Pro, and they were really just kind of revving the engine to get to the point where they did M1. And then, I mean, we can remember back 5 years, were there any bad reviews of the Apple Silicon M1 Macs? Like they were so superior in every possible way.
Yeah.
Well, and it didn't just affect the Mac users. It changed the PC industry, because everybody, look what's happened to Intel in the intervening 5 years. Everybody looked at this and said, we are not getting anywhere near the battery life, the power per watt. Of course, Apple Silicon had NPUs, neural processors, ML processors built in. I mean, this was a big shift, and the entire PC industry said, whoa, I don't think they expected it once these computers came out a few months later. I think everybody in the PC industry said, we got to Intel back to the drawing board. Qualcomm all of a sudden becomes a leader. It took them a few years, but their Snapdragon Elite now is coming a little closer. I don't think it's there, but almost close to Apple Silicon.
It's a great example of how sometimes, and it doesn't always happen this way, but sometimes Apple, because they control more of the inputs into their products than most companies, Apple can make a decision with, I don't want to say courage, because I feel like Apple ruined that word for everything, but really, like, Apple can say, look, we are confident that these ARM processors that we're designing are going to be able to handle Mac workloads. And yeah, there are issues with GPUs and external GPUs and the memory architecture, and like there are all those things that they built for iPhone, but they're like, we think this is going to make great Macs. And they were right, but they also, by demonstrating that, a lot of the industry that was never going to make that step looked at them and said, oh, okay, it's safe for us to make that step. And that's a way that Apple's, just because of the way they're set up, they can lead the industry there.
And doing something that's completely vertical like that is crazy unless you're Apple.
Yeah.
There's really nobody else that should do what Apple's doing. We're just trying to own that entire, like they're only doing it because they got to a certain point where they're at a certain scale. They have enough of their market is all set up that way. But generally this kind of vertical alignment is, and I don't think that they're done. You see them looking at all the different chips that are in there, and they talk about all the external chips like as legacy chips. Like they're, I think that they envision somewhere in the future there's a piece of silicon that is your phone that's just inside the screen. like there's not a bunch of little chips. There's not that many other little things. I think that it may take them a long time to get there. They may never get there, but I think that that's the North Star for what Apple wants to do, is just build a chip that does the thing and own every piece of that chip. And there's just a chip inside, with a couple things that external that tie into the other things. And I think that you'll just see them keep on rolling that up, because it just gives them an enormous efficiency. And again, you can only get that if you're at their scale. And if you're making 75 million of something, is the only time you can do that kind of thing. And almost nobody else is doing that.
I just wrote this morning, in fact, a piece that'll be on Macworld's site later this week about this very subject. So I'm glad you brought it up, Leo. I'll point out that it's not just the 5th anniversary of Apple announcing their transition off of Intel. It's also the 20th anniversary of Apple announcing its transition onto Intel.
Oh wow, that's a good point.
Which was
right,
at WWDC 2005.
Yeah,
where they and then it's not quite, because it was 94 when the first Power Macs came out. So this is the third big chip transition the Mac has gone through in that time. I was chuckling. I actually went through the archive. I've got a bunch of old Mac Week story texts from back then, and I was looking through it, and it's funny. The PowerPC transition, which for those who were not around back then, they went from the Motorola processors, the 68,000 series that was in the original Macs. And then in the early 90s, they went to PowerPC, which was a company, it was basically the Apple, IBM, and Motorola alliance. So Apple was doing research into RISC processors, and so was IBM, and they came together and they brought in Motorola to make this new generation of processors that they felt would compete better with what Intel was doing with 486 and Pentium and things like that. And if you read the stories, as I did, from like 94, 93, you see that Apple was dissatisfied with the pace of chip transformation growth and speed increases, and was frustrated that they didn't have any control over it, and that their entire product was controlled by a single supplier's plans, which is Motorola. And I'm like, that's literally the story every single time this has happened, because then with PowerPC, the story is that IBM was building those G5s and said that they would go to 3 gigahertz, which they could never reach. And the G5 couldn't go in a laptop, and everybody was very frustrated. And that's the moment that Steve stood on stage and said, it's true, and unveiled the Intel thing, which got them a lot. And in those early days of Intel, like, Apple erased, for people who don't remember that era, like, Apple erased the whole issue of like, but Macs aren't as fast, because they were having those issues. Now Macs would always be as fast as a PC because they're using the same chips. Yeah. It also was just in that early moment where the iPod was big and the iPhone was about to be big, and the Intel processor meant that you could run a virtual version of Windows on it at almost full speed, which allowed people who were Mac curious but afraid of losing that important Windows app that they had to use to take the plunge, because it was always there. And I think the truth is most of those people never actually did use that Windows, that Parallels or VMware thing that they installed, but it was there if they needed it. And so it was like perfect timing for them. But forward 15 years, and Intel's pace of, Intel had kind of lost the lead. Its pace of change had really reduced. TSMC was coming on. And the big difference is, of course, Apple had spent the past decade working with TSMC. They were designing chips and TSMC was building them. So that transition 5 years ago was like the biggest no-brainer for Apple, because they'd already gone through it. They already knew how they were going to do Rosetta. They controlled their development environment. Another lesson learned from PowerPC, where MetroWorks Code Warrior was the software used to build PowerPC apps on the Mac, and not controlled by Apple. Not great. So they did Xcode, and they've got Xcode for everybody. So, it's, if there is, I wrote a piece about this maybe 5 years ago, and I said, I'd like to believe that there are people at Apple who worked on the PowerPC transition, who are still there and like have got this down to a science now. This is the third time, but that's a long time. And I heard, after I wrote that piece, I heard from somebody who's like, oh yeah, there are a bunch of us here who were here back then. And like, no company, I mean, to take a whole platform and move it to a completely different chip architecture is a big deal. And they've done it 3 times, and it was fine all 3 times. And I think, again, to Alex's point about Apple, like, having the extra difficulty in doing, more stuff than anybody else, like, the fact that Apple just 3 times has said, yeah, there's better chips over there, we're going to go over there, and has nailed it all 3 times.
And at this point, and I think it does get better and better. And I think one of the things that makes it better is that they own the OS, they own the development as you said, the development platform. And by owning all of those stacks, it makes this much more smooth in a way that makes it very hard. It makes it very easy for them to continue to innovate, especially as they pull more and more chips into the system and more of the hardware into the system. It makes it much more. Now they have to stay in front of everybody. Like the danger of what Apple's doing is that they can easily, suddenly not be able to produce as fast as their competitors. There's given verticals like not being able to keep up with a variety of the modem chips or other things like that. That'll be a challenge when you start doing it all in one. But there's the advantages from like just merging the CPU with the with the GPU and then having them sitting on the same chip as the RAM. You can make a lot of mistakes and have that work well. Because it's just so efficient because it doesn't have to slow down to the bus.
Yeah, and the other thing that as part of the story is we forget that Intel, Apple was just not a subject of Intel's attention for a number of years there, where time after time, like, why are we getting this new MacBook? Well, because Intel promised Apple they'd be able to deliver this CPU generation by X date, and they completely failed to do that. So it wasn't just Apple. It's very true that Apple always wants to control everything wherever they can. They don't like relying on outside anybody for anything. But nonetheless, it was like, we are going to die soon if we are at the whim of Intel's ability to execute their roadmap.
Yeah. And they knew at that point they had spent, 8, 9, 10 years designing their own chips and building them with TSMC and had gotten their legs under them. I think, if you would ask Johnny Srouji and his team in 2014 or something to build a Mac processor, they'd be like, maybe. But by 2020, it was like a done deal, right? And obviously they had been working on it for a couple of years. And so they went in with confidence. So my only question is is in 10 or 15 years, is there going to be another chip transition? And the answer would be, it would have to be cataclysmic. Something cataclysmic would have to happen. But, life comes at you fast. You never know. But Apple seems to be right where they want to be, which is building
the first time they've made their own, right?
Computer in a package. Yeah, because Apple, IBM, the AIM alliance was, Moto was building those chips, and then IBM was building those chips, and Apple was involved, but they had to rely on partners. And you could argue that this is similar. But the TSMC is a much better partner than IBM was ultimately for the G5.
It's conceivable that either tariffs or a Chinese retaking Taiwan could put TSMC in jeopardy.
Yeah, but even then, I think what you'd see is Apple taking its design and getting a fab, even if it had to go back to an older chip node. Legacy nodes out there, they could do that and build those chips in the US if they had to,
or whatever.
Or go to Samsung and have them build them in Korea. Like there would be options, but that would be under the line of cataclysmic. Yeah,
and it'd be cataclysmic. But I think that Apple could spend $50 billion on making the shift if they had to. That's a kind of number that very few companies can just do. Flip the switch and in a year be somewhere else.
It's been a huge success. And ironically, you can now run Intel stuff pretty well. In fact, Linux stuff pretty well on the new Tahoe because it has a container with Linux on it. And so, and truthfully, even if you're running Windows on ARM on an Apple, it often runs better on Apple Silicon than it does on the options for Windows PCs. Windows on ARM runs great in Fusion on my Mac, on my M3 Macs.
Yeah, that's the other part. I put that in my Macworld story a little bit too, is that the funny thing is getting off Intel means you don't have that really convenient full speed Intel virtual machine. But guess what happened?
Guess who else got off Intel?
Now you've got Windows that will run on ARM, and you can use their version of Rosetta, which is very good actually at taking Intel Windows apps and running them on ARM. And so here we go, right? Like Apple kind of led the way, but in the end, you can still do that, and it's pretty great.
Yeah. This isn't the only anniversary. You mentioned the PowerPC transition, but who can forget the infamous Apple typewriter memo, which came out 40 years ago. I guess it's not really an anniversary. It says February 1980, so maybe this is an old article, but I do love this. Yeah, it is an old article. It's 45 years ago now. Apple is this is from Mike Scott.
Then CEO, yeah.
Then CEO of Apple from February 1977 to March 1981. In February 1980, he decided to write this memo. Apple is an innovative company. We must believe and lead in all areas. If word processing is so neat, then let's all use it. By January 81, no typewriters at Apple. Ken, get rid of the DEC word processor ASAP. By the way, if you give up your typewriter, you'll get the latest Apple II plus Apple II writer system. And first priority on new Apple high-performance systems. Yeah,
man, I wrote a lot of words in Apple Writer. That was their own word processor that they had for a long time.
Yeah.
Was the 80-column card a thing in 1981 yet, or we still stuck with 40 columns? I want to say 80 columns came with the Apple IIe.
Well, the 2E could do it.
It was built in, but I know there was you get a card for the 2 Plus.
For the 2 Plus, maybe so.
Because like if in an office full of Apple II Pluses that did not even have upper and lowercase and 40 columns, you have to make sure that everybody has upper and lowercase and the ability to see an entire sentence.
Get that shift key mod in there. You get that, yeah.
And
but I love it, right? That's dog fooding, though. He's like, we got. If we believe in this stuff, we got to live it. Good for them.
And incidentally, Apple was developing the Lisa at this time. I know that seems pretty early, but they already had a Lisa team working on a graphic interface and all of that. So
what's amazing is that I look back on it. I was thinking about when I was in school, and when I got an Apple IIe, I think when I was 13 or 12 or 13, and that was the last time I was talking to a teacher. I was like, that's the last time I did cursive. The cursive. Yeah. I never did cursive again.
Never going to use it again.
Because the teachers didn't care that I was, back then they weren't sensitive, like, oh, people have to learn how to do cursive. It was just like really easy to read.
In 8th grade, in 1983-84, in 8th grade, I talked to my teachers and I said, I would like to I bring you a printout of what I wrote on my computer on a dot matrix printer. And they said yes. And in hindsight, I look back and think my handwriting is and was so terrible.
They were
that
thrilled.
As weird as it must have been to get these things printed out on a computer, they were probably relieved that they didn't have to try to decode my chicken scrawl that I was doing.
I can probably top that in that I think I'm probably certainly the first student in my entire school system to submit a paper electronically, because I had English at like 11 something, and it was finished. I wrote it at home, but I didn't have time to print it. So I said, hey, I can give it to you like after lunch. So I go to the computer lab during lunch and like print it out. And Dr. Terrence Earls, beloved English teacher, said, I've got an Apple II at home. Why don't you just give me that disc that has the paper written on it?
Yeah.
Sneakernet.
And fortunately, it wasn't a bluff, so he actually had it.
That's pretty cool.
But that was he was very proud.
What year was
that? That would have been 83 maybe.
You guys make me feel so old.
Yeah, he wrote an editorial.
I was well out
for
of
Boston
college
Globe
before that.
Yeah.
I did bring a typewriter in 1973 to college, and I left with the typewriter. There were computers, but I don't think we were submitting papers digitally by then.
My college newspaper, my first job in my college newspaper was as a typist, and it was literally people would bring me typewritten manuscripts or things they printed out from their PC or whatever, and then I would retype them into Microsoft Word on an Apple or on a Mac SE in order to so we could put it in PageMaker and lay out the newspaper. And that was every now and then somebody come in with a Mac disk, and it was like they were a conquering hero returned from afar, where they're like, "I have a disk with my story on," and we're like, "Oh, it's so good!" Because otherwise you got to retype it yourself. That was, the primitive days of 1989.
The period of time you'd go into the announcer's booth or the sports writer's booth at a Giants game, and there'd be a row of TRS-80 Model 100s, and they were typing on these little flat. They weren't laptops; they were
wedges,
little flat computers. They were wedges.
Laptops.
And then they had a modem port, and they would finish the story. They would connect to the coupler.
Put the handset in this rubber molded thing,
and upload it from there. So we've come a long way.
It's wonderful to trace that history. I own 3 typewriters. And one of them is like the laptop version, like the Smith Corona Skywriter from like 1940 something, 50 something. They made it for like 20 years. It was for like the traveling salesman or the traveling reporter or something he could like carry from place to place to place easily. And it really is about the size of the chunkiest PowerBook that Apple ever made, maybe just a little bit thicker. But it's like, yeah, at some point, the idea of having a mechanical typewriter that was slim, lightweight, and portable was actually a very, very like attractive product.
Well, as long as we're talking about the end of an era, you can see here my Mickey Mouse Club grabber on my spreadsheet. You know, you forget about the fact that those 3 lines indicate that that's a glove.
Yep.
And then when you grab with the glove. This is it. It's over for the glove. Tahoe has eliminated the 3 lines and somewhat simplified the glove. So you see,
they realized that we added an element of fun and whimsy, and we simply can't have that.
someday you young people will be looking back. You'll be doing a show like this with a bunch of oldsters and say, remember when the glove had 3 lines on it? Remember when we had gloves?
Incredible.
It's incredible. Also, by the way, FireWire may be dead in macOS 26. That's according
the
to
USB
Insider.
killer got killed by USB.
Wow. How am I going to charge my original iPod?
Exactly. It's like this is why you like every time you look back on that huge box of just random ancient cables that you keep meaning to throw out, and suddenly you're like, yeah,
a couple of them. You got to get a couple 400s, couple 800s, couple. You know, like you got to have a
You
box.
probably had cameras, right? With their IEEE 1397.
No, lots of them. I mean, this was a huge. The FireWire was a huge revolution, and you know, Apple got all these cameras. What was really interesting is that Apple, FireWire was free to use, and Apple got all these camera manufacturers to adopt it. Like now, you can just plug the camera in and just digitize directly from the camera to the computer to iMovie, and other people will use it, and blah 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 blah. And Apple got all these camera manufacturers to support it and build it into their system, and then they charge $2 for licensing fee for the computers, not for cameras, but for computers. And what that did, and people said, "Oh, that'll kill the format," and that's not what happened. What happened is it kept all the PC manufacturers from adding FireWire to their computers, and it meant that Apple basically had free run of Fire. Yeah. You know, if you were doing video, you couldn't use a PC.
Yeah, I remember people
like it was, and I talked to someone that might have been there at the time, and I was like, this seems like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. He goes, well, no one's going to be making videos on PCs anytime soon. Yeah. And so that, but they first had to get the camera manufacturers all loaded up and building them, because once you get them building them, it's years of distribution.
For years, I had this Franken cable that was like plugged into my cable box because of when TV went digital, part of the negotiations with Congress was that, hey, but you still have to allow people to like record things just like a VCR. So the concession was that, okay, how about we put a FireWire port on the back of like cable boxes that if you are an incredibly technically savvy person and know where to find a piece of open source software, then you can actually capture video coming right off of your cable box. And I needed like but again, to make sure that no one could use it, it was like FireWire. I needed FireWire to like Thunderbolt to something else to actually get it into one of my Macs. And of course, it stopped working at some point, and I could have sued, but I decided it was too big for that. But yeah, the thing is like it's certainly past time to lose whatever baggage FireWire is creating. But even when you decide, oh, haha, FireWire, no one's been using that. Oh, God, how am I going to sync up stuff to my original iPod? There are, guarantee you, a significant non-zero number of people that are like, but I have this one thing at my facility that requires FireWire. And so suddenly, like, this Franken cable becomes the most valuable piece of property in the entire chemical plant, because if we lose that, we lose access to this data collection device that is absolutely essential to keep people in the plant and in the community alive.
FireWire started 400 megabits per second, topped out at 800 megabits. That was the fastest Apple ever offered anyway. And now Thunderbolt 5 tops out 100 times faster at 80 bytes. Actually, that's 800 times faster. 800 gigabytes per second. That's a lot faster.
I think it's 80 gigabits.
80 gigabytes, or is it gigabits? Okay, well, then it would only be
10 gigabytes.
Then it would only be 100 times faster.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Still fast. Still fast.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back. There is more to talk about. Lots of rumors. But first, a word from our sponsor. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, Jason Snell, Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by Storyblock. If you've ever worked for a publication or in a marketing company, anywhere where you've got to put content on the web, you know the pain of legacy content management systems, CMSs. They promise enterprise-grade features, but usually, in my experience, you get slow, clunky systems that need developer support for even the smallest update. And when you're trying to move fast, that's the last thing you want to do is file a ticket. Storyblock, our sponsor, changes all that. Unlike those monolithic CMSs, Storyblock is something called headless. This is so cool. It completely decouples your back end from your front end. So developers can work in any framework they want for the front end, React, Astro, Vue, whatever. While marketers, you do get an incredible visual editor. So marketers get to use this, easy to use, intuitive visual editor to create and update content. And they have full control. They don't have to file a developer ticket. If you want to move something over 5 pixels, do it. Storyblock scales whether you're a freelancer or part of a global enterprise. With a global CDN, AWS data centers in the US and Europe and Asia, it's built for performance at scale. And of course, Storyblock is enterprise ready. They've got all the features Fortune's 500s demand: role-based access control, enterprise SLAs, and absolute top-tier security. One global e-commerce giant switched to Storyblock and cut content update cycles from weeks to hours. Another major brand empowered marketing to launch campaigns completely independently, freeing up devs. Because you know what? The devs don't want to have to come to the rescue either. So the devs got to work on bigger, more interesting projects, and you get to do what you need to do. Storyblock has an API-first approach. That's the key. You write the front end to access the back end through the API. That means your content loads fast anywhere in the world. It means a better UX design. It means higher engagement. It improved SEO. And with their real-time visual editor, everybody's happy. Marketers see exactly what their content will look like before publishing. No more endless back and forthing over minor tweaks. And devs get fewer interruptions. Marketers get more autonomy. It's a win-win. Ooh, if you're an agency, you're going to love this. Storyblock offers multi-client workspaces, flexible permissions, seamless collaboration tools. You can manage multiple projects without disrupting development workflows. So whether you're a startup, an enterprise, or an agency juggling multiple clients, Storyblock gives you the power and flexibility you need. Try it today at storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25. Use the code TWiT25. TWiT listeners will get 20% off for 3 months on Growth and Growth Plus plans. That is storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25. The code is TWiT25. For 20% off the first 3 months on Growth and Growth Plus plans. storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25. The offer code is TWiT25. I think you'll love it. Storyblock. I thought this was kind of interesting. Apple executives, I use, my favorite AI is a kind of mashup of all the AIs called Perplexity. I even use it for web searches. Apple executives apparently, according to Bloomberg, have had internal talks about buying Perplexity, which one market analyst said would immediately change their attitude towards Apple from a buy to hold to a buy.
Yeah, that was Bank of America. That would be, by the way, that would be a $14 billion buy at their current valuation,
Wow.
which is about 10 times greater than their biggest. I think Beats was Beats their biggest
Beats was like
acquisition?
3 point something or other, I think.
Yeah,
Well, it must be nice to be Perplexity right now because Meta tried to buy them earlier this year.
Yeah.
They are hot.
But it's interesting in that they would get they would basically get a pre-cooked, like Marie Collander's pot pie. Like it's all set. They've got stuff that's actually working. The big question would be though is like, could they integrate a team like this into the Apple culture, or would they just be there to train the people who are already at Apple? They'd keep a few of them, and the rest of them would just be like, I'm contracted here for 5 years, but I am so out of here as soon as we're done. Apple is such a unique culture that I don't know. It would be weird to figure out how they could keep the team that accomplished everything that they've accomplished as their own independent company could continue to function that way as an integrated workforce inside Apple.
So, I mean, my issue with Perplexity is it's a product company, not an LLM company.
Although they have their own custom something around.
Yeah, but they mostly are using other models. And so this doesn't get, to my mind, if Apple were to buy Perplexity for 15 billion or whatever, 20 billion, whatever they ended up having to offer, I mean, they'd get some good press. That's probably not worth 20 billion. I think they wouldn't get the thing they need the most, which is probably help internally building models, although I don't know the state of their current thing, but fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. Like they haven't really shown that they're great at that. Is this an injection of talent to build products that doesn't actually solve their underlying problem? And does it really solve the fact that they, are they struggling to integrate? Because in a lot of ways, Apple does a pretty good job of integrating ML features in their operating systems. The thing that struck me about this is that they have their search product. And if you're in an era where Google search as the default may be in trouble based on court rulings and that AI search seems like the future, I do wonder if Eddie Q looks at Perplexity and says, maybe that's our future search engine, is something that we could own.
Nice.
And uses other technology from other companies too, but that we, it would be our AI system on top of it. I think that's interesting, but I'll come back to it again. I don't know if buying Perplexity solves what might be the biggest underlying problem, which is that Apple does not seem to have cutting edge people building models, and that over the last few years, they probably lost anybody who wanted to be a cutting edge person doing models to some other company. So it's a weird fit. Also, we should mention a lot of stories about Perplexity being bought came out last week. Like there's been an organized plan by somebody to really stir the pot and get people talking about Perplexity. Yeah, I do wonder about that. But if I were Eddie Q, I'd be talking to them too, because just on the search part alone, it's an interesting possibility.
Yeah, I use it for search as well as for a model. I pay $20 a month for Perplexity Pro. This is the choice of models you get if you have the Pro version. Perplexity has its own, they say, Sonar Fast model, which is probably somebody else's model that's been adapted. They do offer Claude 4, the latest version of Claude, GPT 4.1, Gemini 2. So you get access to all of the latest models. You even get Perplexity's own reasoning model. In fact, Perplexity recently added a research tab. It says if you're willing to wait a few minutes, and sometimes it's as long as 10, you can ask it to do a big research task. And it's been I used it before I went to my doctor and found it very useful. One of the things that Perplexity does well, and maybe Apple would be interested in, is the fact that it doesn't really often hallucinate. I can pretty much trust the search results because it's using the web as a backup. It's kind of what they call retrieval augmented generation using the internet. So it's pretty darn accurate.
Yeah, the general sense is that people think Perplexity has done a good job of building a product and building it on top of some other models.
Yeah.
Is that what Apple wants? I should also say that in the member Discord, it pointed out that that aphorism that I learned from Scotty in Star Trek, I said it wrong because it's fool me once, shame on you, you shouldn't fool me. Fool me twice, shame on me, I shouldn't be a sucker to believe that you wouldn't fool me again. I feel like that's where I am with Apple's AI efforts, is you got to have that added skepticism of it's not a first cut at it. It's like they kind of blew it, but now are they on the case or not?
The top guy from Google, John Giannandrea.
I know, right?
And we all said, oh, this is going to be great. And it didn't pan out.
Yeah, although in the end, they do have a lot of really impressive AI stuff. This is the thing that gets flattened when we try to simplify what's going on with Apple and AI. Apple has for years had a lot of really good AI stuff, and they still do have a lot of good AI stuff. But in that key moment when LLMs were starting to blossom, the people at Apple who are in charge of AI, and I think they've kind of turned their nose up at it and was like, well, that's just silly nonsense. Forget about that. And they missed their moment. And now they got to catch up. And did they blow it? Did they turn off a lot of people? Can they hire people? Do they need to acqui-hire? I think it's very hard to say this on the outside, but like Perplexity to me, on one level, they're doing what Apple should also be good at, which is taking, AI stuff and making products out of it. And if they're not good at that, then it's maybe a good purchase. And that's why I mentioned the search stuff is like integrating into Apple's OSs, I think is something that Apple's probably going to be able to do. I think they're good at that. I think that's actually what Apple is generally good at. But the search thing is a great example of like, that's just a product that they haven't built. And if they're really concerned, it might be worth $15 billion. I mean, how much is the search business worth to them? Google's paying them what, $20 billion a year for that? Like, it might be worth it to get, boom, you've got your own AI-powered search that you can wire up to every Apple device. Maybe, but like, I don't know. It just.
That's a big swing, though. You go from getting paid $20 billion a year to
spending
paying $30 or $40 billion for it.
And because you're Apple, you're not going to be able to monetize it the way that Google has been able to monetize it through apps and
you have to do it yourself instead of having an intermediator to make all the money off of all those people who are using your products. And that's why you
have to bury your own bodies from now on.
Yeah, and my spider sense. The reason my spider sense is tingling about this is mostly because it on its surface, Apple buying an AI company kind of makes sense. If they could get an infusion of talent in an area where they have a deficit, that's great. But the more you look at what Perplexity actually does, and it does a good job at what it's doing, but it feels like it would be a splash, but like, is this where Apple needs the most help? I'm not sure it is.
And I still think that I don't think it's the same. I think that a lot of the press and I think that Apple last year got into this thing where it's an existential threat for Apple, and I still will keep on saying it's not. Like, I'm using plenty of AI all over my Apple devices. I don't feel like I'm missing a whole lot. It's not like I don't have a high expectation for Siri to do anything. So it's not really like, but it doesn't matter. Like what am I going to do? Go to another operating system? So I don't think Apple has and because one thing that Apple keeps on doing is the lock between all of these different services and all the different things that you have is so tight that if you've bought into that, you're not going anywhere, and so not anytime soon. And so I think Apple has a lot more time. And I think that this long play, the short play, they're not good at. They're not going to be able to do that. And I think that it was a mistake for them to say that they could. But the long play, if I'm going to put, they own the operating system, they own the development system, they own the hardware. Being able to tie more and more of AI stuff into something that's happening on device, that's more secure, that's less expensive, that all those other things is a huge advantage that they have potentially 2 years from now or 3 years from now, where they don't have to negotiate with anybody, they don't have to talk to anyone about it. As long as they can get the release valve of making it easy to talk to other AI tools, the integration with other AI tools, which we're seeing in Xcode and we're seeing in other places, really makes all of that, I think, work really well. And I just don't think a lot of AI, it's just not the same. Like Google, it's absolutely the same. I barely use Google search now. Like it's just a very rare thing for me to search. In fact, I sometimes search and then I go, what am I doing here?
What do you use instead?
So it depends on what I'm doing. So for images, I'm typically using Midjourney, but I'm also using Kling and Leonardo. And then for coding, I'm still kind of in the Claude world.
But for search, what do you use?
ChatGPT. Like I literally hit a button and I say, Janet from The Good Place.
Right.
Like, Janet, where is this? And I take pictures. I take pictures as well. Like, this isn't starting. I don't even tell it what it is.
My problem with replacing Google search is, and this is true of Perplexity, I get a lot of AI stuff. All I want is links.
Oh, see, I don't want the links.
You don't want the links.
I just want the data. Like, I don't care about the links. I don't care about.
You're not looking for a site, then. You're just looking for information.
I am generally just aggregate. Now, if I want to check the veracity of that, ChatGPT's handing me links of what it's based on the whole way through.
Same thing with Perplexity. That makes it much more trustworthy.
Yeah, so I can go look at it, and obviously I'm going to buy something or do something. And usually when I'm asking ChatGPT for something, I'm going to know it's real or not in about 10 seconds later, because I'm asking it how to do something I'm about to do. That's like 90% of my searches. Is I'm like it's going to get tested by reality really fast. And so. And I find
that's not how you put out a grease fire, ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. I don't ask ChatGPT for that.
While it does feel like these are placed stories, it is the case that when Eddie Q was on the witness stand during the Google trial, he said, "We've been pretty." This is a direct quote from Bloomberg. "We've been pretty impressed with what Perplexity has done, so we've started some discussions about them about what they're doing." So maybe that was the seed for this Bloomberg story, or maybe Perplexity's been calling around saying,
they don't need to buy it, right? They could be talking to them about a deal to use their search.
And incidentally, when Perplexity was asked, it made a statement: "We have no knowledge of any current or future M&A discussions involving Perplexity."
Exactly how you see it.
And that's how you should say it, by the way, because who was the company that prematurely announced that Apple was going to buy them, and it fell apart immediately, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but it was not a good thing to do.
It's the sort of company that you would forget who they were after
yes.
they make a mistake like
they immediately sank below the surface. Yeah. Jason's good piece on using an iPad for making podcasts.
Yeah. I decided not to do like a stunt and secretly do this episode, and I'm just using a Mac for this, but I could.
You could if you wanted to. And Dan Morin did your Six Colors podcast.
Yeah.
On an iPad.
The big deal here, for those who don't know, is that a lot of podcasts and video shows, not this one, because we use Zoom and it all just sort of is recorded live, but a lot of them, you've got people on unreliable connections, and when you're doing something like Zoom or any other voice over IP, it prioritizes latency over quality. So like it doesn't. If you sound a little bit bad, but you sound immediate, it's better than if you're lagging 3 seconds behind the conversation, but sound immaculate. It just makes sense, right? The problem is for a podcast, you want it to be immaculate. And so those two things are different, like real-time communication versus having a super high quality recording are different. So a lot of podcasters, they do the conversation on a VoIP app and they record locally their full quality audio and video. And you could never do that on the iPad or the iPhone before because of multitasking reasons. And in 26, they built in this feature that it's at a system level that'll let you press record when you're doing a Zoom call, and your mic and video will be recorded to your device full quality. And then you can email it to somebody or put it on Dropbox or whatever, literally anything you want to do with it. And so we did this, we tried it out, and I had some nerdy tech specs. So basically, like it's an MP4 container, but it's FLAC audio inside, so it's compressed, but it's lossless compression. So it's full quality, no compression artifacts, at 48 kilohertz. So it's like full range audio. And then I don't know, ours was audio only, but like it's going to give you an MP4 video coming right off of whatever your camera is.
Oh, so you could do video too.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll generate both for you. So it's just another thing that it's like they're checking off the boxes of like reasons why you might not use an iPad and or iPhone. This actually, I think one of the most exciting things about this is if you want to do a podcast with somebody and they're traveling, they can bring a little USB microphone and attach it to their iPhone and do a podcast and give you a full quality file at the end.
And the problem we've had before is either you had to compress it a lot, or you had to compress it a lot to get it out, or it's breaking up all the time with 5G or Wi-Fi or whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah,
you hear the dropouts. As a podcast editor, I can hear when somebody does something on used to be Skype, now it's Zoom. I can hear those dropouts. That back in the day, so many people just recorded the Skype call, and you could hear the dropouts. I
hear them in my nightmares.
I know, right? And so this is more work, but it is the highest quality audio that you can get. And the iPad, because the iPad and the iPhone just were not made for multitasking, it just wasn't there. And rather than like doing an API, the truth is an app could be written for the iPad that does this. But that's the problem, is that all the apps that people use don't do this, and they're not apparently going to. So instead, Apple just put it in the system and let you take control of your own device. It's a great thing, and it's even better than I thought it would be, because it is like full uncompressed or losslessly compressed audio in that stream, and importing that file into an editor. There's nothing to it. You drag a file in and it just imports it. Like, there's nothing special about it. It's nothing weird about it. It's just an audio file. So it's one less thing to worry about when you're doing, if you're with an iPad or an iPhone and not on a Mac.
Did you test anything about how to start everybody at the same time, or is that still something that's...
It's not like that. It won't do syncing.
It doesn't matter, because when we've done double enders, they drift anyway. You still have to resync all the time.
You do have to do that. I've got a tool on my Mac that does that, and everybody asks for it. And I say, the author of it, who shall remain nameless, it's not me. It's one of my friends. Doesn't want to release it publicly. So, okay, I can't share it with you. But
is it automatic?
Is a problem. Yeah,
it looks at the waveform and matches them up.
It matches them up. It's amazing, but I can't release it to anybody. I've got a whole automator thing where you click on a file and you say sync it, and it syncs it, and it's amazing, but I can't ever release it.
You're such a holdout.
Every year I ask him if he'll let me release that somewhere. So anyway, the weird quirk about this feature is and I think it's a privacy thing, which is great, is it only works when you have an active VoIP session. So like, if you press record and your Zoom call hasn't started yet, it doesn't record your audio.
It
doesn't record your video, because no app on your system is asking for your microphone.
Right.
Once an app asks for your microphone or your camera, like Zoom, when a session starts, then the recording starts. So it's very specifically only when some other app is... you can't use it to just like record your thoughts, right? That's not what it's for. You should use an app that does that. This is to ride along with some other app and give you a local recording of just you. And it doesn't record the other end. It just records you. But that's super useful.
That's all you need. That's what you want.
So like, for podcasters, if you use Zoom, you can do a cloud recording. The quality isn't good, but you've got a backup of everybody that you can refer to later if you want to.
And tools like Riverside FM will do local downloads as you're recording and then upload them. So there are tools that will do this.
There are tools that will do this, but you have to have an app that is that everybody's got, that is specifically written to do this. Yes, that's the truth of it. Is all Zoom has to do is upload its local recording that it makes to their server, so you could download it, and they would solve this problem. But this is why Apple built this tool, is that a lot of these popular VoIP apps
is listening. Careful.
I mean, a lot of these apps, their priorities are elsewhere, and I understand why. But as a podcaster, I just want to press record.
There's no Audio Hijack Pro equivalent for the iPad, is there?
You can't do it, because there are no APIs to control any of the audio stuff in there. So you have to. This is what you do. Apple has to do it. And so this is Apple's solution, and I tested it and it works great. So like, check it off the list of reasons why you can't travel with an iPad.
I want to take a break, and then I need your help, because I don't want to get in trouble. Apple put up on YouTube a video of a presentation for parents. It's actually for kids to present to your parents to convince them to buy you a Mac.
Holy cats.
Apple has pulled it down. I have it. It really goes back to, it's an old trope in advertising. It goes back to, remember this guy?
Mom, Dad, hey, it's me, Steve. This year, to avoid any confusion, I'm putting my wish list on video. All I want is a computer. Now, hold on, Dad. It's just $849 for all of this. A Dell computer, speakers, monitor, 1 year of MSN internet access, an Intel Pentium 3 processor, which
he got to meet Bill Clinton, too, because of this.
Well, I think Apple's was a little more sophisticated. We'll talk about it in just a moment. But I want... John Ashley, can you contact our legal department and find out if I can play it?
I've done that in advance, and they advised me for you not to play it.
Is there any way I could play it just for the club?
I mean, your call in the end, ultimately. I can tell you what you shouldn't do, what you should do, but you have...
They're so humorless. They're so humorless. All right. Well... if you're in the club, actually, Mac Pro Connecticut already uploaded the TikTok, so you can watch it for yourself. And we're just going to have to leave it to your imagination. It's like a TED Talk.
Would you like to do a professional reenactment of the commercial?
No. It's a TED Talk. I can't. And the guy, there's special effects. Could I play it without the audio?
No.
Oh, I hate this. Because we know it's perfectly legal. It's what's something called fair use, but fair use is merely the right to hire an attorney. And John Ashley is not admitted before the bar in the state of California, so we're just not going to play it. Our show today, but we have other stuff coming up on MacBreak Weekly. We're so glad you're here and watching. Our show today brought to you by CashFly. And when I say brought to you by CashFly, I mean literally brought to you by CashFly. For over 20 years, CashFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. They're a CDN, a content delivery network, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. And by the way, they're our CDN. At TWiT, we've been using CashFly for almost 20 years. If you know, and the good thing is you don't even know, because you don't notice that your downloads come in fast and you never have a problem watching the video on our website or any of that. That's the beauty of it. CashFly is one of those things that's so good you don't notice it. We love their lag-free video loading, their hyper-fast downloads, the friction-free site interactions. The proof is in the petabytes at CashFly. By the way, we do more than a petabyte of downloads a month on CashFly. Events stream smoothly. In fact, you can get less than 1 second of latency streaming to more than 1 million concurrent users worldwide. That's pretty darn good. Online games start 70% faster, scale instantly, play without lag. Software downloads, flawless during releases, patches, and updates. Yeah, you don't want your patches to get caught in a hiccup. HD video plays on demand with ultra-fast sub-second start on every device. And one thing we know about users, they're impatient. If it doesn't start right away, they go somewhere else. And CashFly has helped us and many other podcasts reach global audiences and record speed at any scale. We never have to worry about it. CashFly delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. And by the way, you could do something now that we've been doing kind of privately for a long time at CashFly. Put your site content in their cloud. By doing that, you ensure a 100% cache hit ratio. And with CashFly's elite managed packages, oh man, you get the VIP treatment. It's like gaining an extension of your team. Believe me, when your entire business model, like ours, depends on delivering massive amounts of content, you don't want to go it alone. We tried. Then we found CashFly. You should too. You can count on personalized help anytime from a tenured expert who gets it, engineer to engineer, 24/7. Learn how you can get your first month free at cashfly.com/twit. That's CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you, CashFly. Thank you very, very much. Darn, I really want to play that video. It's pretty funny. Now, why did Apple put up the presentation in the first place and then take it down?
If I was a marketing person trying to get to that market, I would put up a video that was pretty rough, and then I would take it down immediately. Like that is and then if they wanted it off TikTok right now, they'd take it off TikTok. Like it
is on TikTok, right?
They did pull it down from YouTube, and they pulled down a repost that someone else did.
Well, it's sitting on TikTok with a lot of views. No one's gone after it. I don't know. I don't know if the put up and take down was necessarily an accident. As someone who's worked on these kind of campaigns, like it's not something that's never been done before. So because it's seen as the you can decide whether you agree with it or not, but I'm just saying
it could be a viral attempt to go viral.
Definitely. We wouldn't be talking about this ad if it was. I don't think we'd be talking about an ad if they didn't take it down.
Well, we might, because it's kind of but you're right. It's certainly much more interesting.
It's lame. No, we wouldn't be talking about it because it's lame and it goes on too long, and it's just it's real like 1990s Apple marketing. Which is, but wait a minute, that's not true. Or wait, that's kind of true, but you have to be but only for certain types of Windows machines. They also, and the idea of like an adult, 26-year-old, but an adult giving a lecture to a classroom of teenagers, talking to them about how to convince their parents to buy a Mac, is in itself like maybe not the best way to do that. And also the idea of I'm going to market. It's creepy that Apple would do a campaign like this, complete with like PowerPoint keynote and Google Slides presentations to give to kids, saying, "Hey, pre-18-year-olds who are actually controlled by a whole bunch of consumer marketing laws. We want you to harass your parents into buying you a Mac for college. It's not a good look. I yield so much to your expertise and your opinions, Alex. That's a really expensive way to play a really big trick. I don't know.
Apple had the money.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just things cost money. It seems like a lot to go through for a video that they're hoping will go viral and people will.
I mean,
we'll take it down enough to make it look like it's viral. But
they certainly scared me from playing it. Right, that part worked.
With creative, I don't think that ad would be more than $600,000 or $700,000. Which
oh my god!
Like I don't think. But I mean, when in the grand scheme of things, I've been paid that much money to do 10 seconds of stuff. So it's like not and so I don't know if it's not a big number. I mean, it's a number, but it's not a big number for a company that big.
I'll also say, to be fair, the SNL comedian who did the video, Martin Hurley, it's still on his social media. It's still a 1 minute clip. Right. I think it's a 7-minute video, and a minute of it is on his TikTok, and I think it's also on his Instagram. Whereas the precedent to this was when Apple has a series of international videos about like a small business team that uses Apple products, and they travel a lot. And there was one where I think that the team went to India or something. I might be wrong, but they went to some country and then had to pull that ad like very quickly because the government of that country said, "Hey, you're basically calling us like a jerkwater place that causes nothing but problems for business people. We don't like that." And that really did it.
I think Apple's definitely done some stuff that's tone deaf. I mean, obviously there was the crushing of the instruments. So I think that Apple, does make mistakes. I'm just saying that when you put something up like that, one doesn't look like it's so bad that they put it up and took it down. But maybe
I will accept this. I will accept it as a credible theory. I'm not sure if I
just don't know if it's any different to me than the Samsung ads about Apple phones and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of in the same, to me, it's in the same, like what I don't think, by the way, I don't think it's a great ad. I don't think it's a great video. I don't think it's, I think it's like, okay. I also think though that any teenager that gets a PC should have to build it so that they actually know how it works. Like my son has a PC, but he built it. And if they don't know how to build it, they should probably just use a Mac. Not like they're going to get, coming from a virus perspective and paying attention to things and everything else. I do think that I agree with the overall tenor of that. I don't think that kids shouldn't have PCs. I think they should just build them. That should be this is how you have earned your way into owning a PC as a kid, where you're going to go to all these crazy websites and everything else, is you should actually know how it works.
They're saying it was done in PowerPoint. It can't have been. There must have been Keynote, right? Or no? Is it a PowerPoint presentation? That would be pretty
PowerPoint,
funny.
That would have been part of the joke, I'm sure. But
yeah. Huh. Well, maybe Apple just knew that Andy would pan it, and they just thought they didn't want to. Exactly. They wanted to avoid the embarrassment of having Andy.
They fear and loathe me. I'm Hunter S. Thompson of Apple.
They read your mean tweets. That's what happened. From Engadget, Apple read your mean tweets about Liquid Glass and Finder. Jason, have you installed the second developer beta? Because apparently they've kind of toned down the Apple Glass.
Yeah, I mean, they're working on the Mac was the most unfinished of all of them. And they're working on, I mean, it's a work in progress. They're still there's what Apple wants it to be, what was implemented for developer beta 1, what feedback Apple is getting. There's a lot going on here, and it's going to shift over time, which doesn't mean that it's not worthy of being discussed and criticized, but also it's a moving target and a work in progress. And I would say if this was a student's paper, I would say it's a draft, right? They really do in a lot of ways get some. Some people are really angry. They're like, "How dare you say it's a beta? They shipped it to people, and we should criticize it." It's like, well, you can criticize it, but I feel like you need to understand that it's not the public beta, and even the public beta is not like I will write a story that is review-like in July about the public betas, but it won't be called a review because it's still a work in progress. The final is what they ship as, I guess, 26.0 of everything now. That's weird. And so we'll have to see. But it's making progress. I've been running, I think all the betas are actually surprisingly stable. And the Mac one, parts of it are weird, but other parts of it are really nice already. And on the iPhone, you can see what they're trying to go for with the liquid glass thing, because it makes the most sense in a way on the iPhone.
Oh, this just in. Apple does offer a PowerPoint, Keynote, or Google Workspace version of that presentation that you can download on the website.
Yeah, I put a link to. They pulled it from the Apple website, but of course, because it's Google Sheets, like it can get shared everywhere. So
that's hysterical. So it's not on the website anymore, but it was for a while. Okay.
But I have a link in the show notes.
That's hysterical.
It has all this guidance of right here. Make sure you type in your major. And over here, change it to this. That it's like okay. This
is there are changes in iOS. This, for instance, is the beta. This is from 9 to 5 Mac. On the left is the first beta. The second beta is on the right, and there's less translucence.
They're tweaking the settings.
It's much more legible.
What they want, and that is all going to continue. There's a big thing in beta 2. So the Mac menu bar by default has nothing behind it. And obviously everybody was going to complain about that because of course they are. So there is a setting in beta 2 that lets you put, basically a translucent strip behind it. So it looks like the menu bar again, which I actually don't have any legibility problems with that invisible menu bar now, but it's very weird because I have a window at the top of the screen and then there's space above it where I can see my desktop picture. And I feel like I want to move my window up there, but there is still an invisible force field. They should have a little like it's a Star Trek brig or a Star Wars force field or something like that. Because it's just, it kind of breaks the metaphor. I kind of feel like what they really want you to do is set it to auto hide, which I will never, ever, 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 ever do. But if you set it to auto hide, you can put the window all the way at the top, and they don't care. But anyway, so now
I have my menu bar set to auto hide on the current macOS.
Well,
I like it disappearing. But that's partly because I also show the screens on the air, and I don't want any cruft.
It's fine. I as a longtime Mac user, I like my menu bar seen. Not heard, but seen. So anyway, you can. So they're tweaking it. So they added a setting where you can just put the stripe up there, which is, I think that's good because, of course, there's going to be like a utility. There are already a couple utilities that do it, and I'm like, it's like it really should just be a setting. You can have it off by default, but it should just be a setting because some people are going to want the menu bar to be not invisible, and you can do that. So there, and that's Dev Beta 2. That, I would say those are changes that were probably in the works before they even dropped Beta 1, right? Before we even saw it, they were probably already working on it.
Yeah. So the thing about the first developer release is, like, I always think of it as the monkey house release, where like they've been developing this in quiet, in silence and isolation. They don't know. Again, they've been working inside the monkey house for so long. They've got used to the smell by now. And it's only when we're going to put it out, and you absolutely should expect that there's going to be a wave of rollbacks or minor changes almost immediately as, okay, now that it's outside the monkey house, people, oh my God, why is it so hard to see like beyond this layer of frosted glass? Oh my God, why does the macOS logo look like that guy who got arrested for selling human body parts out of Harvard University, who has this half of his face tattooed blue? All these little things, and so it's fun when the second release comes out to see like all the things that were like rolled back or adjusted, and that's absolutely going to be expected. As Jason said, like we're talking a lot about this. As it happens, the Dev 1 release is quite useful. I don't know if I'd call it stable, but it's quite useful. I've had it on like my own like research phone like for the past week, and I haven't had any real problems with it. But it's not even the first public beta. It's the first public beta where we're going to start to think that, okay, this is the Jello has set. This is pretty much what Apple intends to ship. Now it's just a matter of looking for edge cases and bugs to get rid of.
And there used to be an NDA connected to this. Like Apple's, so that people wouldn't talk about while they were. What? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, that you can only get it by being like an actual paying $100 a year subscriber.
And there was an NDA, like you can't talk about it. This is a work in progress.
Yep.
And the Apple's loosened that up a little bit, and now they have all these people throwing tantrums and going on social media. But it gets them. A lot of people are talking about it. That's any press is good press to some degree, and they'll see the progress.
I think
I bet you.
the
Right.
idea. Yeah.
I bet you they were also in the middle of some of this stuff is they're in the middle of an argument between two different teams and they go, hey, you know what? Let's just go. We have two different versions of it. Who goes first? And we'll put the one out that we're not sure that will go well. See what people think. And then we'll go, oh no, we have another idea. Because developing a whole bunch of new things from version 1 to version 2 that quickly, that doesn't happen.
No.
That happens over months and months and months of time.
I've said for a long time that, when we all talk about this or write about it and we say, oh, Apple should do this and Apple should do that, it's not like an executive hears our words and is like, oh, you've changed my heart, Andy. Now I'm going to do things in a different way. The truth is there are people inside Apple who have real disagreements.
Yeah.
And they hear us talking about it or there's an article that comes out that they can point to and say, see, and it helps people win arguments. A lot of what we do ends up just being kind of fodder for people on the inside to say, I told you that wasn't true. Why didn't you listen to me? Now that and that does lead to change. It's funny. They are paying attention to what people say about it and they do use it, but that's sort of how it works is Apple wants to portray itself as monolithic and like there's only one opinion and this is it. But the truth is, if you have a disagreement with something Apple is doing, somebody inside Apple has also disagreed about that, but they don't have the clout to make it, to win the argument. And maybe public reaction, press reaction gives them more clout to do that.
Yeah, I've talked to folks inside, not necessarily Apple, but inside of other companies that I felt bad. I was like, I'm sorry, I said I really went off on your product. They're like, no, that was a huge thing. We clipped it out of MacBreak and sent it to a bunch of people.
I'm sure we all have those stories, and it's actually the thing that makes it actually feel quite pleasant is that okay, I lost that argument, but someone out there it felt good. The message being that it felt good personally that I'm not just one insane person inside Apple who feels this way, that this is a good product that we need to keep nurturing. There are other people outside of Apple that also have seen the work that we're doing and thinks it's really great and that they want to see it endure. And that is a very, very reassuring thing, a very pleasant thing.
Yeah.
There are other things we've learned from the new beta 2 of the developer release. For instance, it looks like there will be a iPhone 17 that's slim, extra thin.
Yeah, these little things left in the code or left in the resources used to be a bigger deal before Mark Gurman already knew about them and told us about them.
Well, did Mark Gurman know about the new ringtone? This is from David Price at Macworld. This is called Reflection, and I guess it's the default. It's pretty nice. You'll be hearing it on Apple TV shows for the next 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the good news.
Exactly.
You want to hear it
Keep
again?
it fresh.
It's a marimba-ish.
Yes.
Yes.
Marimba-esque.
Marimba-esque. 4 new camera features, according to 9to5Mac, coming to the iPhone 17 Pro, an upgraded. Now, this is rumor, but we're getting to the point now where these rumors are pretty well founded because they're probably making them, right? They're starting to make them now.
You'd think, yeah.
You think. An upgraded 48 megapixel telephoto, upgrading it. So they introduced 48 megapixels in wide, right, in the 14, and then the ultra wide went to 48, and now they're saying 48 megapixels for the telephoto. For years we said 12 megapixels is enough. Why 48? Is that so we can bin and really still have 12? It is a multiple, right?
If you have good light, like if you're taking something, so if you take something that's low light, it probably doesn't help that much. You have a bin, you can do your own processing to it. So if you capture 48 megapixels, you take it into something like Topaz or something like that, and you might choose with more time and all the other things that you can do, you have more control to clean it up and then take it down to something or leave it at 48 megapixels. Because there's something like Topaz AI will take that 48 megapixels and clean it up a lot, and so you end up with that 48 megapixel image. So it's not just binned, it's 48 megapixels in it, but you gave it all this detail, even though there's a lot of grain and schmutz on it and so on and so forth. But the other thing is that when you take the 48 megapixel and you've got a lot of light, it's a big picture. that looks great.
Right.
it's and it's
put it on a billboard.
It's a huge photo. And I use it for photogrammetry. So I switch over to 48 megapixel when I'm going to build a 3D model from this, and I want all the data I can get. And it's really effective at that. And so so you want more of that. That's what
they're small pixels though, because it's still a small sensor.
It is. That's why you can't shoot it in a bar. But if you're outside in a park, and that's why everyone's using these little screens that we talked about earlier, is because
mine comes today. Apparently, I ordered it.
But they want to use that. They want to use that lens to capture their selfies, not the other one. And if you want to crop into it, it's all useful. Again, not good in low light, but not bad when you're out and about. There's a lot of light out there.
And by default, what Apple's doing is they're taking that 48 megapixel data and they're running it. Sometimes they bin it. They're taking multiple images and doing some processing on it. And I think by default, what they end up generating is a 24 megapixel image. So they're finding, right, because it's not as huge, and they're doing all of that processing in their pipeline to make it be a really, really good image. So they're using those pixels, but it's not 1-to-1 unless you're Alex, and then you flip over to the full on 48. And I think that's the rationale, right? Is they can do more with 48 megapixels than they can do with 24.
Yeah.
Even or 16, even if what they get out of it is not necessarily a 48 megapixel image.
And the thing is that by getting that 48 megapixel, even the low light, I think part of why the low light looks so good is because it's being sourced at 48 megapixels, and then they're able to do some cleanup before they scale down, and then when they scale down, that bicubic mapping of averaging out all those pixels is how you get rid of a lot of the stuff that's there. Because I take stuff at night or dark area, not even night, just dark areas, and just can't believe you're out on a street corner and you take a photo of something and it looks so good.
So much of this stuff is getting where the quality of the phone is the phone camera is not necessarily academic, but I'm aware of there are two groups of people that are using good camera phones. One of them are always going to be just the people who, this is the family camera. I want to push a button and get a picture, absolutely reliability, and I want it to be good enough or better than good enough, but I don't have a high ceiling for what I'm expecting. And then there are people like me who are hobbyist photographers, or at least when they're not taking a snapshot at a nephew's birthday party, they're like, oh, wow, I happen to be here at the Golden Gate Bridge, like near sunset. This is a really great picture. I'm going to take this picture. And whereas at one point we would have to sort of hope that the camera did a really good job of capturing this image. I mean, I use Topaz too, and its ability to take a somewhat sketchy image and simply get rid of, in a very, very naturalistic way, all of the grain that was a problem, correct some of the details that got missing, again, in a very, very naturalistic way. And to take it, even just to go back to pictures I took with a 10-year-old phone camera and say, well, actually, I didn't like the fact that it was low resolution and it's super grainy. Now I feel as though I've got a DNG file that is good enough that I can actually start working with it. So I'm wondering if we're entering into a phase where the wars of the cameras are going to sort of start to wind down. It's going to be more about, hey, don't spend $1,000 on a brand new camera phone. Spend $200 for a license on this really, really great tool that will take any potato phone camera picture and turn it into something that is essentially like a full frame mirrorless.
Well, we don't want to scoop your pick for later on, but there is something Andy will be talking about later in the show.
But I will say that I think that even my wife, who has a 13 and I have a 15, when we're out about to shoot, she's like, "Oh, shoot it with your camera." So people can tell the difference. Yeah. Of like, oh, even just that jump from the 13 to the 15, she'd rather have me take the photo than her take the photo if of the family, if we're out, just because she knows that the camera will be better, and I think that's what's happening. I think there's still a lot of room to grow for these cameras. I don't think we're settling in at all. I mean, I think that there can be bigger sensors, there can be better calculation for the longer lenses, shorter depth of field that is more effective. The hair detail gets better every single time. These higher res photos make it easier to get that hair detail back out. I was kind of disappointed. I'm not disappointed yet because I don't know what's going to happen. But when you look at the longer, the larger island on the back of the new phones. I'm really hoping for lenses that are almost the interocular distance apart, so that those of us who are shooting that stuff can just pick up the phone and shoot an image that is in stereo at a better, that has a little bit more depth to it than the current spatial cameras.
Yeah, I just try to be a little bit from my own experience, that I can be really, really persnickety about quality. And it's just that some of my point of view is shifting a little bit in the past 2 or 3 years, as I'm realizing that I've gone from, if you go into my Flickr account, which I've kind of abandoned, I basically now pay for just for storage of 10 years worth of photos that I took before Google Photos and Apple Photos came along. But you could see like the camera tests I would take in the 2010s, where every time there's a new camera, every time there's a new phone, I really felt as though I had to go to the Boston Public Library and take the same suite of photos with 5 or 6 different cameras all over again to see which one can finally pull out the detail in that John Singer Sargent mural, which one of them can get a really good picture of a fast-moving squirrel. And over time realized that all of them are now really, really good. And the next part that got me was realizing that now that everything gets dumped into Google Photos, including the stuff from my really, really nice mirrorless camera with a really, really nice lens on it, it annoys me that if I took a picture that came out pretty good on my phone, and then I spent just 5 minutes in Lightroom Mobile just adjusting the tone curve to where I wanted it, adjusting the color balance to exactly where I wanted it, all that sort of stuff, I have to look at the info on the picture to figure out which one of these was taken with a phone and which was taken with this amazing mirrorless camera that I absolutely adore. So yeah, there'll always be room for improvement in hardware. Again, particularly with there are wonderful advancements being made in like synthetic digital zooms, but nothing will ever beat. No, you have an actual 10x optical zoom, and that's where you start from. Nothing will ever beat that. But I'm trying to reset my own expectations. That wow, what are people actually using these camera features for, and how important is it to be pixel peeping for myself time and time again to see, well, this is the iPhone 17, but let's compare it to the Pixel 10. Let's compare it next to this, because it's like on some point you can say that, yeah, that looks better, but it's subjective. And also, if you don't like it, don't even subscribe to the Lightroom Mobile. Just tap edit, and go yeek.
Yeah, to your point, I don't think either Google or Apple have to keep up with each other other than staying in the same lap.
Sure.
They just can't get lapped, like on the phone.
Exactly.
Like, if they're in the same, if they're somewhere, they can be, 5 or 6 lengths behind. They can, and it goes back and forth or whatever, because there's a certain amount of lock-in with both hardware pieces, but they just can't get lapped, and I think that they both, and I think it's great for us. I think we're benefiting from that. But I have this wide mixture mostly of my family of pictures that were taken mostly in the early days. You can tell in the early days were taken with an SLR, and then taken with the iPhone has been 90% of the newer stuff. And the SLR stuff is still nicer.
Yeah,
it's still better. Like let's not oversell the camera.
100%.
But the difference between that SLR and my phone camera is where I think Apple and Google can continue to grow towards. Because someday it will get to a point where the camera on my phone is as good as the SLR camera, but I think we still got maybe 5 to 10 years before that happens.
You remember when Filmic Pro came out and promised the ability to use the front and back camera at the same time? Apparently, this is a feature coming to iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, the ability to do multicam recording, not just with the front and back lenses, but also with other camera phones. Yeah. Isn't somebody doing this? I know Filmic's. Yeah.
There's a couple companies. I want to say.
It would take the high-end hardware, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's like an API to do this, but Apple hasn't done it directly.
Okay.
And so that's the difference here, is being able to use multiple cameras and have the bandwidth in there. Because it used to be, you could do, because that was the thing, you could do like an interview where the back camera was shooting you and the front camera was shooting your subject, and you could record both of those streams and use them later.
Right.
And Yeah, so putting that in the system software, feeling comfortable enough to just put it in the camera app.
That's cool.
For use for later. Yeah, it's another little thing like that podcasting thing I mentioned earlier. It's a little thing that's a very specific kind of professional media creator use case that like it's really nice to do it, and to not have a third-party app that you have to use in order to do it is great.
Yeah. Also, they're going to improve the selfie camera, a 24 megapixel true depth front camera. That'll be welcome, right? I mean, that's what a lot of people use, that selfie camera more than they use the other camera.
Yeah, well, and that's again why the screens that we were talking about are getting popular. I mean, it went from I didn't hear about them to you go to Amazon, do a search for that kind of screen.
They're all over now.
There's 20 of them, and I'm sure that there was part of it was probably at CES. There was a Chinese company that said, "Hey, we've got this screen.
Yeah, you can white label it."
And everybody, they're all slightly different. There are little buttons over here, little buttons over there, but it's all the same screen. So
I'll have to check my my Amazon delivery guy, see how close he is. He took a while, but I think that was because they were like doing it in shipments, right? They sold out, I believe.
Which one did you order?
The one you told me to order. What else?
I don't know which one I told. There's like 3 of them. But.
Yeah, but you said don't get that one, get this one, and I got this one, not that one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they sold out pretty quickly when I did that.
I think they do it in batches at this point. A lot of people are doing that. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, who will have a pick of the week about photography. That's exciting. Jason Snell from Macworld and Macworld and 6 Colors, I should say.
Sure.
Excuse me.
Emeritus for Macworld. That's still right there.
You're still right
this week.
Yeah, you're in there right now.
Sure.
Do they don't send out a paper magazine anymore, do they?
No, that was actually my farewell column that was coded was a farewell to the print magazine, which was going away. And the secret was that it was also a farewell to me because I was also going away. So it's been almost 11 years now that they've been digital only. Yeah. I
still get, the Atlantic. I get an Atlantic magazine in the mail. I don't want it. I recycle it immediately, but it's just kind of sometimes when you get these digital subscriptions, they insist you get the paper version.
Well, you know why? They do that because they want to make their number of their guaranteed circ for that. And so they'll force you. That happened. My local newspaper, the Marin Independent Journal, we started getting Sunday paper from them. And it turns out that they had just opted all their digital subscribers into the Sunday paper because they wanted to make their, now that I've worked in that industry, I know why you do stuff like that, and you deliver. I once, you cancel
ABC.
You cancel a magazine, and they keep giving it to you, and you're like, but I canceled, and the answer is but we need to make our number because they guarantee to an advertiser that they're going to distribute 300,000. Exactly, and if they don't deliver, then the advertisers are going to ask for their money back. So you end up with you're trying to make your circ. So Macworld is still in, like, if you're an Apple News Plus, it's still in there along with PC World. Because it's they still do a digital magazine, but they don't do paper anymore.
I don't need the paper. I haven't.
It's cool. Every now and then I look in there and I'm like, oh, I wrote a feature story, but it's actually, a couple of my columns that they put in, and they got some art and they put it a thing in the magazine.
DC's doing that with Mad Magazine now. It's sad. Poor Dick DiBartolo doesn't even get paid extra when they rerun his work from 50 years ago.
I mean, Macworld and PC World, their digital magazines are basically like curated best of the website, which was, that's what we tried to do back when I worked there. It's like, not everybody, wants to read about Apple stuff every day. I know it's hard to believe, listeners of MacBreak Weekly, but not everybody does. And so what Macworld is trying to still do, and PC World is say, well, we've taken the best of the stuff we wrote over the last month, and we put it in this nice little bundle that you can go and read. And it's not a bad idea. It's kind of like a newsletter almost. You could even argue that the right thing to do might even be to do a weekly kind of like, it's a matter of how much you care. This is a long-standing theory I've got, which is the internet so often magnifies everything to be like, you must be intensely interested in this subject, right? And so you end up with like a flood of like whatever you're into, suddenly you've got 15 articles a day about it. And it's very hard in that environment to say, I'm mildly interested in this. I only
read one article.
I'll read a few articles about it once a month or once a week, but I don't want 10 things a day about it. And the internet, and the business of the internet has pushed everything to be like, no, you must have everything now. And that was the nice thing about things. Now it's old man time. Like a monthly magazine is like, sometimes I know this is hard to believe. Sometimes you only care about something a little bit.
Yeah.
And the internet is not interested in that. They want you to care about it 100%.
You can't skim the internet. You can skim a newspaper. You can watch how people read newspapers. They don't usually focus in on an article.
But if you're in a special interest area, the special interest area wants you to be 100% committed to them.
You're right. That's
versus saying, I care about Apple stuff, but I only really want to read about 5 articles a month about it. Yeah. It's sorry.
That's why we stopped doing daily podcasts. I know that, there's some of the biggest podcasts are daily, like the Daily and Up First. But when we did daily podcasts, the numbers went way down. People don't want, we did the Gizwiz every day. People don't want it every day. Once a week, that's plenty.
Yeah, well, I actually got my first 6 Colors cancellation. We used to do a monthly newsletter that was hand delivered, and then we changed that to a weekly newsletter that is for members only, and it's all the stuff we posted that week essentially. And I decided in this era of Substack, I changed it to be, if it's a day where we posted a full story, you get a newsletter that day. So it's not necessarily 7 days a week or even 5 days a week, but it's more like it. And I got somebody who said, it's too much content, I'm going to cancel. And it's interesting because it's literally the same amount of content they got once a week, but now they're getting it on 3 days a week. And they feel like they're being pummeled. And I get it on one level. It's that classic New Yorker problem where people cancel the New Yorker because they feel like they're not reading it enough.
I felt guilty. Yeah.
And so, and that's what we felt with doing the digital magazine at Macworld back in the day, is we generated enough to do a 400-page magazine every month on the web, but people don't want that, right? They want it to be curated and slimmed down and be a smaller thing. You could overwhelm people with that stuff, but that's part of the challenge. Is if your business model is to pound out those stories and get them out there, you're kind of turning off people who are interested but not that interested. It's a real interesting challenge.
I just want to let everybody know you don't have to listen to every one of these shows.
That's right.
Listen when you feel like it.
Amen.
Listen for as long as you like.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody.
I
know people cancel subscriptions because they're piling up. That's fine.
It's okay. You can let it go and we still like you. So one of my podcasts, the one I've been doing the longest, The Incomparable, it is an eclectic selection of pop culture topics. We do books and movies and TV shows and comics and all sorts of different stuff. And I talk to people about it and they're like, "Oh, Jason, I like The Incomparable, but I can't listen to every episode because I'm not really interested in that kind of TV show or that kind of movie." And I'm like, literally the only person who cares about every episode of The Incomparable is me, because I'm the host. I don't expect anyone else to do it. And if I were to build that product today as a media professional, I would have to have more focus because it is all over the place.
Right.
But it's okay. It's hey, I'm glad you subscribe.
Yes.
Listen to the episodes that please you, and don't listen to the episodes that don't.
Don't feel guilty if you don't listen. It's okay.
It's okay.
Well,
it's okay.
I think it's funny. I'm so live oriented that I listen to for TWiT, I listen to the shows live, or I don't for me. That's how I listen. to it.
A lot of people do that.
We have those.
And and for me, it's just not overwhelming. If on Sunday's a day that I'm off and organizing my office or whatever, and TWiT's the perfect thing to turn on. I can listen to it and everything else. But I found myself not listening to that many. As many podcasts. I think TWiT and This American Life are probably the two that I have podcasts that I listen to a lot. 20,000 Hertz.
That's pretty good company you've got us in.
Yeah. So, that's about. But other than that, it falls off pretty quickly, and then I have the same problem. I forgot that podcast existed. That's my problem, is that they don't.
I have hundreds. In fact, somebody was just talking in the Discord about the number one category of disk storage is podcasts, and they periodically just go through it and download it, or delete it rather, because it just takes up so much space.
I think I have the same problem that I had with books, that I have with audiobooks, that I have with podcasts. Is there's a lot of aspirational listening. I aspirationally subscribe to lots of things. Same with YouTube channels. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'll subscribe to that.
Absolutely.
Nothing provokes a long session of weekend house cleaning like realizing how far behind I am on podcasts that I love. It's that's 6 hours. That's enough time to move all the furniture out of the living room, roll up the carpet, wash the floor.
I think I'll paint the house. Yeah. I recently, I don't know if I mentioned on this show, I missed an email from Audible that said, we're going to cancel your membership because you have an old membership we don't want to offer anymore. And if you respond to this email by May 31st, we'll give you a free year to make up for it, which I missed the email. It was in my spam bucket. So on June 16th, I got an email saying, hey, we've canceled your subscription. Bye. I said, I've been a subscriber for 25 years.
Right.
2 books a month for 25 years. I have 750 books. And then I thought, you know what? This is a blessing because I haven't listened to about half of them.
So now you can work your way through them.
I was just getting, 2 books a month, make sure you use the credits. And so now I said, fine, thank you, Audible. You did me a favor. And I've downloaded, of course, the first thing I did is download them all from Audible's site and take out the DRM so I can listen to them in some other player in case Audible decides with very little warning that I should no longer be able to listen to them either. And now I've got 750 books. And you know what? By the time I get to the end of that, it'll be like the Golden Gate Bridge. I'll just start over at the beginning. I'll never know. I'm looking forward to being in the home and just having an audiobook player running all the time. And I won't care what it is. It can pick random chapters. I should write that, a random chapter audiobook player. So you don't even know what you're listening to. It's just going. We're going to take a little break. I know you don't know what you're listening to. We're just going and going and going. You're listening to MacBreak Weekly. I'll tell you that right now. That's Jason Snell, who does even more podcasts than I do at sixcolors.com/Jason. Andy Anako, whose website will be out any day now, giving you even more to read. But it will all be beautiful, beautiful prose. And Alex Lindsay, who for some reason decided I should do a show every morning.
During COVID, it made sense when we started.
Every morning I should do a show, but it's live, damn it. Yeah. It's great to have all three of you. It's great to have you listening too. A reminder, though, one of the things that makes this possible is your Club TWiT membership. I do hope you're a member. If you're not, I hope you'll consider it. $10 a month, $120 a year. There are corporate and family plans that have a discount. What do you get? Well, first of all, the fuzzy feeling, warm and fuzzy feeling of knowing you're supporting the programming you presumably like enough to support it. It really does make a difference to us. It's 25% of our operating income. Without the club, we would have to let people go. We would have to cut back on shows. With the club, we can do more. In fact, a lot of what we do is in our Club TWiT Discord. Discord is a place that club members get together. You don't have to do that, but a lot of them, maybe 65, 75% of them, go in the Discord. So it's a great place to hang out. I go in there all the time. I get inspiration. I get ideas. I get brickbats and bouquets. We also do shows in there. In fact, I want to remind you that tomorrow Scott Wilkinson is doing his Q&A special of Home Theater Geeks, 5:15 Pacific, 8:15 Eastern, right after Intelligent Machines. And he wants questions from the Discord. So get in there. If you're not a club member, join right now. You'll be able to participate. We are doing something very fun on Friday. We're going to talk about music with my old friend Norman Maslov, who runs a YouTube channel about vinyl called Mazzy's Music. He's a vinyl king. But we're also going to talk with the author of a book about MP3s and digital music. So we're going to do it a little bit backwards. So we'll talk digital first, then we'll talk vinyl. We'll go back in time. That's this Friday. We'll start at noon, go through 1 or 2. I hope you'll join us. Our AI users group is July 11th. If you're interested in AI, this is a real hands-on thing Anthony Nielsen started. And we've had a lot of fun playing with tools. We have the photo workshop coming up with the monthly show we do with Chris Marquardt. Our word of the month is quirky. Take a picture. Join us. We'll talk about some of Chris's picks. Micah's Crafting Corner is fun. It's just a cozy chill. It's like Bob Ross, but you pick the painting, whatever it is. Micah's doing Lego. You could crochet. You could knit. A lot of people cook. It's a lot of fun. That's just some of the things happening in the club. And of course, I've mentioned it's like a blanket made out of pure love. I did mention that we do our keynotes now there to keep them out of the evil eyes of Apple attorneys. So all of that for $10 a month, I think that's a good deal. twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you in advance. I appreciate it. Let's see. NFC release 15 has been announced. I think this is of interest to Apple folks. From O'Grady's Power page, NFC release 15 announces next-gen devices will get quadruple the range. That could be interesting. I have an NFC door lock, for instance.
Oh, remember the quadruple the range is from 0.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters. So
okay, it's a little farther.
A dime to a dime to 2 dimes. That's the jump. So
it's up. It doesn't say 4 times what? Yeah, from half a centimeter to 2 centimeters.
Half a centimeter. I'm sorry, not millimeter. So
not a millimeter.
Between,
half a centimeter to 2 centimeters.
5 dimes to 20 dimes. Think of it. So that's the math. So it does mean it's like you don't have to do. Is it at the top of the thing or at the bottom?
It's not so precise. That's the problem with my NFC key lock. It often doesn't work because I have to position the phone just right.
But you don't want this to be too much, right? That's the thing. Is that the solution here isn't ultimately you can NFC from 6 feet away, because the whole point is it needs to be extremely proximate to whatever you're doing so that it can't be hijacked. It can't be, somebody can't brush past you and do something. Like it's meant to be. This is just like taking it a little bit further than it was, where you don't have to hold your watch right up to it and bang into it and before it finally gets to do your Apple Pay or whatever.
If you use tap to pay, you're using NFC. So your watch or your phone. So that's good. And I presume Apple is on the board, so Apple will probably support this when it comes out.
I have an NFC door lock, and I'm kind of banging my watch against it to unlock the door. And it might be nice if that was a little more smooth of a kind of like wave it in front of the door and it opens. Although all that stuff is getting better too. So it'll because they're also doing UWB in a lot of this stuff now, ultra wideband, and I know it's another 3-letter acronym, but UWB, the advantage there is it knows exactly where you are in 3 dimensions related to whatever object you're talking to. They use it in Find My, but that will allow smart door locks to do things like know that you're at the front door and unlock it for you. But if somebody knocks on your door and you're on the inside and you come over to the door, it knows you're behind the door, so it doesn't unlock it for that person. Like that's, in some cases, the UWB stuff is going to be a better use than NFC.
I feel like ultra wideband has been really underdeveloped since it was announced. Like it doesn't feel like it's wide.
I think some of that's because of beacons, and people were very paranoid about privacy and so forth.
It's also just a matter of time of rolling out the tech. So the phones have had it for a little while, but like the first UWB door locks, or for your house, are coming out this year. So they are starting to come out, but it lags a little bit. And I think there are now cars that are shipping that have UWB support for locks as well. So like it's starting to happen, and it's just, I think the issue is first you got to get it in the phones, and then you got to get it in all the accessories. But I'm excited. Like I will absolutely upgrade to a UWB door lock at some point in the next couple of years, because then, rather than having to wait for my watch to be jammed in its face, it will literally know I'm walking toward the front door and unlock it, which is how it should be.
I feel like I want something like an Apple tracker or something in everything. I think part of my brain is starting to die related to where my keys are, because I don't think I lost them nearly as often as I do now, because I'm just constantly opening up my phone and just going, oh, where are the keys? Maybe it's just I don't look anymore. I don't bother to look anymore because I know that I'll find them really quickly. But but I find I put them in every bag that I travel with. Like if I'm getting on a plane, every bag has an AirTag in it, and I'm surprised that the bags they haven't started building ones that you could just snap the AirTags into. Like somewhere hidden in the whatever, I can just snap one in, because it really takes a lot of the stress out of, or adds to the stress. Because there was my last flight, I landed in LA and I could see my AirTag in Utah. I was like, well,
and now like so many I think I forget which one it was, but another airline announced that their baggage like debugging process is now going to start supporting AirTags as well. But this is exactly the sort of thing that you look back and you wonder, gee, how come so many things got so much better? I don't know how it happened. And it is because like this technology that you don't really interact with directly or think about went to the next level. Same reason why battery chemistry developments in the past 10, 15 years is like, oh, that's why phones don't stink anymore. That's why laptops don't stink anymore. That's why I have a flashlight that I don't have to charge it like every 3 days anymore. And it's all because of some chemist came up with a way of putting more density per cell per unit, and you never had to know that this revolution actually happened. So this neat news.
I think that I was reading about some technology is supposed to double our battery and be less flammable in the next 3 to 5 years or so. So
less flammable is a good thing. I would love to be able to charge my bike like inside instead of like having. I don't have a garage anymore, so I literally like I live on like the upper floor of a really great old building, but I literally have to go onto the fire escape and put it like on the fire escape because it's a nice bike. It's not like a cheap like Temu sort of thing, but nonetheless, I don't care how good this company is. I'm not putting a big battery pack like that inside and connecting it to the live wire.
My first drones, the batteries all came with a bag. Like, don't only charge them in this fireproof bag. And I was like, I think I'm going to put it in the bag and then in my garage around concrete, surrounded 3 feet of nothing. I kind of built this little, there was like this little area that I charged all those batteries.
I stopped buying AirTags and I started buying these Chipolo trackers. I'm really happy with them. They work kind of just like AirTags, except they have a little hole in them, so it's easier to put on your keychain. And they come in colors, and they support Find My. And I was able to, watch for sales. I think I got 4 of them for like $35 or something. And they work with Find My, and I get a notification when I leave my hat behind. They're small enough I could put them in my hat and so forth. So,
what I'd love to see? I think that there are a lot of people who are talking about like what's the next AirTag going to be, the next iteration. Like, I think the greatest feature that Apple could add is that costs about the same or maybe like $1 more, but you get it and there's like an AirTag and then there's also just an inert decoy AirTag that you put someplace that is like kind of visible where someone who's looking for an AirTag to remove it is going to find it like on the underside of my bike seat. And then once they find it, they'll stop looking, but they will never find like the real AirTag that I put on my bike. I think that's someone who comes up with that product. They would get in a lot of trouble. There were
e-bikes that had built-in Find My. I remember. It was probably a Van Moof or something really expensive, but
it was a Van Moof.
Yeah, they went out of business.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Do you have a Van Moof?
No.
I'm so jealous if you do. I always wanted one.
No,
it was a Dutch company. They were very pretty.
No, there was the San Francisco Chronicle. Peter Hartlaub did a little story about Dave Fleming, who's one of the Giants broadcasters, and he lives in the Richmond district and rides his bike to and from the ballpark every day, which is pretty awesome. And I looked at the picture and I was like, I mean, Peter's story says it's a nice e-bike, but I looked up what it was and I realized it's not a Van Moof, but because this company's still in business. But I have an e-bike, and I think Dave's bike costs about 10 times what mine costs.
You can spend a lot.
Yeah. You can buy a really nice e-bike if you want to.
Yep. Let's see what else. Oh my God, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey's Apple TV show has been put on hold because of a creative clash. Maybe the hacky sack they were playing got lost. I don't know.
I think it's over their father. So.
I don't know. Cast and crew were sent home mid-month after the departure of the showrunner, David Reed West. The show, 8 of the 10 episodes have already been shot, which is interesting to pause after that. They're talking with Lee Eisenberg, who worked on Lessons in Chemistry. The story is about a heartfelt odd couple love story revolving around the strange and beautiful bond between Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. The bond, however, is tested as the pair's combined families attempt to live together on a ranch in Texas.
Is it possible that they just got so stoned that they forgot where the studio was?
They could get lost on the way.
Maybe. They weren't like protesting. They just literally weren't there because they couldn't find it.
I mean, this is the most tenuous of Apple stories because it's just a television industry story. I think the first season of the new Daredevil show on Disney, similarly, they shot most of the episodes and then the studio didn't like where it was going and they fired the showrunner and brought in a new showrunner. They reshot a couple episodes, or they shot a couple new episodes, inserted a new episode 1, and then did a bunch of reshoots for other points in the season. And I haven't watched that show yet, and apparently people liked it okay, but like clearly
Trouble in Paradise.
They decided to break it, and you only do this when think it could be fixed. And if they've already shot so many episodes,
8 episodes,
either they think it needs to be fixed, or they're hoping that this will go multiple seasons, and they just didn't want to spend all this money and then have it be broken. So, it's not uncommon And that what the story doesn't say is that Tim Cook sent them a memo, right? This is whoever they're working with at Apple said it's not working, and this is pretty routine. This happens.
Well, and often it's the showrunner, and then they disagree with the director. The director, like there's a bunch of people that are creatives that are involved. It's probably not as heavy-handed from Apple as it may seem in the article. It's probably a bunch of creative people internally in that project arguing about it.
I haven't seen F1 yet. Has anybody seen it yet? Apparently, the very first thing you see is an Apple iPad.
iPods, yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the headphones, the AirPod Maxes. It's one big Apple ad from front to back.
As it should
I
be.
bet it's still good.
They spent the money.
Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be good. And it's an F1 ad too.
Except for who the bad guy is. That's all. They're the ones who's using the Samsung beds.
Right. Apple did win a big appeal, a $300 million U.S. patent verdict that they had lost. They appealed. The appeals court threw it out. This is with a Reuters euphemistically calls it an IP management company, Optus Wireless Technology. Of course, where's the trial? In Texas. Jury instructions were flawed in the previous trial, so it's not over yet. It is the second time that 9-figure verdict has been overturned, however. Optus says, we are highly confident the court will establish fair compensation for the critical Optus patents that enable high-speed connectivity for millions of devices. In 2020, the jury said Apple owed $500 million for infringing the patents. It got cut back to $300 million.
I just feel like there's such a manipulation of the patent laws. And I think that there should be some threshold of you have to at least attempt to make 10% of the patents that you own, or 20% or whatever that number is, or you can't enforce them. Like you can't just have ideas and write them down and patent them. Like that's not what it was built for. It was built so that you would share with everyone what you did, and then it would protect you to make it for the next X number of years. And this is a complete perversion of the patent law, and it just is, just coming up with an idea and locking it down is not, I think that should be, you should have a certain amount of time to actually execute something, and it can be 7 years or whatever, or you have to do something with a certain percentage of your patents. But this is just BS.
The same, roughly the same award was given in the UK. The UK Court of Appeals in May increased the award to $502 million for a FRAND license with Optus for Apple. So Apple is looking at could be $1 billion fines for all of this. There is some question whether Optus is these aren't 4G patents, by the way. There's some question whether Optus's demands are FRAND, fair. What is it? FRAND stands for fair and reasonable, I think. So we'll watch with interest. I'm sure Apple's got the checkbook out. Feds wise up and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't use WhatsApp if you're communicating. The federal government says the U.S. House of Representatives staff must no longer use WhatsApp and switch to more secure services like Apple Messages. Okay, according to the Financial Times, the chief administrative officer of the House of Representatives has banned WhatsApp starting at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's nice to see them. They're trying to make people follow rules in there.
I'm not sure but I don't know if WhatsApp is more secure or less secure than Apple Messages in both cases. WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol.
Yeah.
I'm not sure really what they're saying here, to be honest. This might be a mistake.
Yeah, me neither.
It might be really a shot by the Trump administration at Mark Zuckerberg, who he's not a fan of, apparently. WhatsApp messages are end-to-end encrypted by default, said the spokesperson for Meta. The app should remain on the approved list. In fact, Apple messages are end-to-end encrypted in some cases, but not all. The House recommends Apple Messages and FaceTime, but they also approve Teams, Signal, and Wicker, which is, as a Apple Insider says, Amazon's messaging app that's so secure you've never heard of it. Okay.
It's right up there with Chime.
Chime. What else? Right to repair is now the law of the, what do you call it? The law of the continent in the EU.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. The bigger thing that's associated with that is that part of the EU's new laws that just came into effect is that on when you're selling devices, you have to have kind of like nutrition labels about repairability, about features, about a whole bunch of different things. And now those are finally becoming into effect. And so I haven't seen it yet, but apparently Apple's now forced to sort of disclose and be willing to stand behind certain claims about like battery life on devices, because they have to now basically make this public information.
Yeah, they have what we have now eliminated in the United States, those Energy Star labels. Apparently those are gone. But EU is starting to do that now for smartphones, which is, I think, a good thing.
Did I read that article correctly that it said in 2027 it has to have a removable battery?
Yes, the battery. Let's see the scale. Let's see the energy, battery endurance.
But I think further down it said that it needed to be that by 2027 it was going to require all phones to have a removable battery, and I'm.
Smartphones and many other devices sold in the EU will have to feature easily removable batteries by 2027.
Yeah,
right.
The text that I read, it might have changed since then, but the text I read basically says that no, you can still have like an iPhone. You just can't like create it so that you have to destroy the phone to get out the battery and swap it out.
Yeah, so, easily removable by whom? I guess would be the question.
Yeah,
right?
Meaning that and Apple has already done a whole bunch of work, particularly in the most recent redesigns, where you don't have to disassemble everything to get at the battery. You don't. It's not the bottom of a stack of things anymore. So yeah. Don't worry about that. That would be
kind of a crazy thing. I was like, I think we'll just get EU phones for that one. Like Apple, we're just going to make something for you guys. But I did
because
think
moisture and dust resistance.
Well, I think that
who needs it?
One of the things I thought was interesting though, is I started thinking like, how could they do that? And one thing is, as you see them getting thinner and with MagSafe, you could theoretically build a phone that had very little battery, not no battery, but almost no battery, that you slid into a larger sled. You can decide how thick you want your phone to be, because for many of us, man, I would love to have a thicker phone that had more battery. I was just, especially when you start shooting video, if you start shooting like ProRes on your phone and doesn't have external power, it's a really short trip.
About 12 years ago, one of the reasons why wasn't the reason why I switched from iPhone to Galaxy S3S or whatever it was. One of them was that you could just simply pop off the back, swap out, just like John Wick swapping cartridges, and suddenly be good for another 3 or 4 hours. And boy, was that great when you're at like a 3-day conference.
Yeah.
In our Vision Pro segment for today,
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk to Vision Pro.
If you've always wanted to take a hot lap with a famous movie star pretending to be a race car driver, you're in luck.
Yeah, baby.
That's the first time that I got close to feeling sick. Like it wasn't quite there, but it was the first time I was like, whoa, I can feel that one a lot.
Is Brad Pitt actually driving, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they trained him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so there's a Vision Pro on the TV app. It's a hot lap of Brad Pitt somewhere in the Middle East at a
It's called
track.
F1, the movie hot lap.
Yeah, and it's just a lot. I mean, it really is like just a one camera on the car. You can watch him. You can watch the road. And it didn't have any effect on me, but it was very entertaining. Like you're on the race car, you're mounted to the side of the race car as you do a lap on an F1 track, and that was pretty cool.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I didn't think it was cool. It was just that like that's a pretty aggressive thing to do with a camera. It was.
Do you think it was an Ursa?
The nice thing is that the camera was mounted on it didn't move on the car, right? So the world moves around you, but the car and Brad Pitt and all of that stays pretty static, which for me
that helped
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say I read something that was interesting because I don't know a lot about F1. I know a little bit enough to know that wow, even just getting an actual F1 car to move without it locking up and basically saving the engine from you destroying it is an incredible thing. So I'm amazed that any of these actors actually learned how to operate an F1 car. Turns out that as though this is hugely less impressive, the actors were driving F2 Formula 2 cars that were rebodied to look like F1s, but that's still a pretty good that's still a pretty good thing.
And I remember Paul Newman was a pretty accomplished race car driver. There have been movie stars who
and I think
James Gardner and Grand Prix was really driving those damn things.
And I think that Brad Pitt, I think I read somewhere, spent months in training, to be able to drive the car. So
speaking now we're back on F1. There was a story that came out like while we were recording about how Apple Wallet users are getting push notifications like advertising F1.
Yeah, I saw that.
Show notes.
Gosh, I hope that's not true.
You think they would have learned from the YouTube thing? I mean, I haven't seen it myself. I put in the show notes under showbiz.
It's true. People I know have gotten it. It's definitely.
So it's in your wallet, and it says buy tickets from Fandango?
Yeah, it's in your wallet, and you get use a code with Apple Pay to save.
I can't remember the last time I opened.
Do you have to have a Fandango card in your wallet, or?
I don't think so. I don't know.
So it's basically dropping a coupon in your wallet.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't see one. Interesting. I do see a card for the Petaluma Cheese Shop.
Ooh,
a Wensleydale. Okay, I don't know. I'm hoping. And now you can fly around the Haven 1 space station, which has not yet been built, but it is a proposed commercial enterprise from VAST, the first commercial space station in low Earth orbit. In order to get people excited about it, they've got a VR fly-through. It's also available on Meta, but you can get it on, if you want, on the Vision Pro. Have you tried that one, guys?
I haven't. I think I was looking for it in the content area, but I think it sounds like it's an app. I haven't downloaded the app yet.
VAST VR fly-through. It's just a 3D rendering of what the Haven one will look like.
Which is still cool. The biggest problem with a lot of the 3D renderings that have happened so far is that they're not done very well. There's an enormous amount of texturing and everything else that can be done for the Vision Pro and for Meta, and especially if they built it for both the Vision Pro and the Quest, the quality of the textures and everything else will be much lower than what they could be. So it'd be interesting to see if they push that up just from a pure processing perspective of how many polygons and how big the texture maps can be. But I think that overall, I think we've only seen a handful of places where people are actually pushing the quality to what the headset is capable of actually doing. So I haven't taken a look at it yet, but and the problem is that people keep on, well, it's good enough for right now, or we're just going to see if people like it or not. But that's like, half-baked bread is still dough. And so you keep on, like, if you get halfway there, you're like, oh, hand out dough. And they're like, well, they don't like the dough. And they're like, well, it's not finished yet. And I think half of Apple's business plan is just finishing the bread. Like, it's just like, oh, everybody put out all this dough that's half-baked. And let's just put it in the oven for another 20 minutes and see how it turns out. And I think that is, but I think that's what is missing right now with a lot of the 3D stuff that I've seen, is that there's just a lot of half-baked bread. Like they want to test the waters, but they're not testing the waters with something you can actually eat. And so it'll be interesting. I'll take a look at. I mean, I'm not saying about this, but my general experience.
You're feeding ducks when you test the waters with the bread.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to bring it together, Alex.
I'm trying to get so many metaphors.
Trying to get the metaphors together.
The metaphors are lost together.
I had a little Vision Pro item, which is just that they released the final recorded version of Sandwich Video. Released the final recorded version.
Speaking of half-baked bread, yes,
of the talk show.
Oh,
which they captured in 3D, not immersive, but in 3D for their theater app. And they released that, and I got to use it. And what's fun about it is they did 3 different. So the grand argument that we all have is, what's the ideal way to record a live event? Is it a single camera? in a single position, or is it like what Apple does with a lot of these? You're cutting every 4 seconds, and you kind of, in my opinion, become unmoored. And I feel like there's probably a happy medium in there somewhere, but it's not either of those. Anyway, what they did this time is they framed it really brilliantly because you're in their virtual theater, but it looks very much like the theater. It's on a screen, but the way it's lit and the way it's framed, it's like they're on the stage in front of you. And it's just people sitting at couches talking, right? But it's 3D. It looks really good. It's really well shot. And then they also shot it from the left and the right. And if you swipe left or right, it moves you to that part of their theater and that camera.
That's cool.
And so then you're at this different angle, and it keeps the illusion that you're kind of looking at a stage, and you can watch sort of over John Gruber's shoulder or over Nilay Patel's shoulder, or you can watch it straight on. And so again, just an experiment. They're recording a podcast on a stage, but last year there were a lot of technical glitches, and this year it looks rock solid. And I really love that they're experimenting with the idea of doing multicam, so you can choose a perspective and just switch between those perspectives. And there's a little bit of when you swipe, it sort of goes black and then it comes up in the other location. It's not instantaneous, but like it's just a cool way that they're exploring what this sort of thing could do for an event like that.
Excellent.
Yeah. So cool to see.
That's great.
And that's your Vision Pro segment.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
Those of you who are waiting for the Vision Pro segment are now free to leave.
But don't leave right away, because our picks of the week are coming up next. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Jason Snell, Andy Iannacco, and Alex Lindsay. Let's kick off the picks of the week. We've been very good keeping mum about Andy's picks. So now, Andy, go for it.
Yeah, this is a really, really great thing. So the computational photography brain trust, formerly on the Pixel team at Google, moved over to Adobe.
Chiefly Mark Lavoie, who was so
Mark
impressive
Lavoie.
at Google.
Amazing. And before that, like the first computational photography app that I ever used was an app called SynthCam that was available for iOS when he was a researcher and a professor at Stanford, I think. And I still have, like, in deep of my camera roll, like, oh my God, look, it's in Boston Public Garden, and you can see, like, there's blurry stuff behind the George Washington statue, but the George Washington statue is completely sharp. So they released a technology preview from Adobe. It's a new camera app that's called Project Indigo, and my goodness, it is the stuff from start to finish. There's a long, not so technical paper that they published basically announcing it that really outlines the philosophy and the thinking and the research that goes behind it, where their idea is to create something that's more of an SLR sort of look to computational photography, like whereas the traditional camera app tends to over denoise things, oversaturate colors, over sharpen things, just over process things to begin with. This one uses the very, very latest technology, the very, very latest AI to combine not just a handful of intermediate frames to denoise, but like 30 frames to denoise at the very, very top. It does everything very, very thoughtfully. It's, again, tries to be more like, and I think they say this explicitly in the doc, it's more like we're building a conventional mirrorless camera, but imagine that this mirrorless camera has computational AI and computational photography features built into it. I've been shooting with it for the past week. This is one of the reasons why. Yes, it's nice that I have it's nice that I have the excuse of here's the I've got the new developer beta 1 to test out, but I've been carrying my iPhone alongside my Pixel because I just want to keep playing with this camera app. And I will say, taking the same pictures with the stock iPhone app and this app, it's still experimental. It's not as though it's hands down kicks the butt of the stock iPhone camera, but there's many times where you can see where the iPhone just got things wrong. The color was just not right. The sky is just, it's a nice sunny day, but the sky was not that like incredibly intense blue. everything when there are noticeable differences, this camera is a lot more naturalized, a lot more natural than the iPhone camera. And on top of all of that, I don't think I've seen an attempt to make you get the interface is still, hey, press a button, take a picture, and if that's all you want to do, that's all you have to do. But I've never seen an advanced camera app that tries to introduce pro photography modes and done it in such a simple, elegant way, where if you want to give it some extra instruction about saying, hey, I want you to boost up the shadows a little bit, or hey, I want to have some awareness of what the histogram is like, or I want to see where highlights are being clipped out. It is so easy to do all of that stuff without feeling as though the interface is just so damn cluttered that you just want some relief from all of the overstimulation from the UI. It is really, I think one of the simplest things I can say about how much I'm enjoying it is that, like, it has basically taken the place of the camera app in the launcher of my iPhone. Now it is the Project Indigo app is in the space where I would normally go to tap on the camera button. Now there are some things to know about. This is an experimental app, which means it hasn't crashed or messed anything up as far as I've been using it for the past week or so. However, it is super computationally intensive.
Yeah, did you notice your phone gets really hot when you're using it?
I get. It's the only camera app I've used that without taking like 8K video, it says, "Hey, the camera is overheating. Please."
Yeah, immediately.
And that on mine it'll happen like this is an iPhone 14 Pro. The doc actually says that we kind of recommend the iPhone 15 because it has more computational.
I have the latest iPhone Pro Max, and it said almost immediately, "Oh, your camera's too hot."
but the other thing you'll notice is that, like, as you're when you take the picture, it's completely responsive. But however, you'll see in the lower left hand corner the little preview. There might be a little countdown timer. Says it's taking us like 4 seconds to do the computation and actually write this. And during that time, because as we discussed before, we talked about the iPad, iOS doesn't do anything in the background. If you by nature like then sleep the phone and put it back in your pocket, it might still have some stuff to do by the time you get there. But it's amazing. It has some labs features, like some things it's stealing from like other Adobe RAW products, like if you tap on the labs button and say, "Hi, can you just automatically?" I took a picture of this thing through a window. Could you remove the reflections like automatically? Sure, I can do that, no problem. If you've got Adobe Lightroom, it integrates really, really nicely with Adobe Lightroom, sending its DNG and its RAW data. I
felt like you had to subscribe to the iPhone Lightroom.
Nope.
To use it. You don't have to pay anything to use it. You have to have an Adobe account.
For now, it's 100% free. Okay. It's available through the App Store. The only thing is that, again, in the doc, they say that, maybe we're not going to keep this free forever, but this is an experimental thing that we want to do. But Adobe, they're saying that Adobe really is very, very much culturally invested in the idea of not having the camera and the processing and the editing all as part of one app, one part of
the idea is it replaces the Lightroom camera. In fact, there's a switch to do that. Oh, exactly. Also, and I know you don't have the camera button on your iPhone, but it does work. You can't assign the camera button to it, so you can actually press the camera button and
it's. I mean, I've only I haven't even tried like long exposures and like real nighttime mode with it.
Yeah.
Again, the paper that was published with it is not really a technical paper, but it will impress you as to how much work went into this and how much thought went into this and how ambitious this could be in the future. And hopefully one of the new features coming up is an Android version, because for now it's iOS only.
Well, because it's Mark Lavoie, I think that was the thing that really got me. He was the wizard of computational photography, and Google hired him, and Adobe hired him away from Google.
I've heard him speak multiple times, like in person, about his work. I had one conversation with him at a Google event that, like, oh my God, if it's possible to fanboy with a computational photography like researcher engineer, I did exactly that thing.
Yeah.
But the thing,
have you played with it, Alex?
I just opened it up and started playing with it.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of opinions yet. Yeah, I had it. No, I had it yesterday. I think it came up in office
I took it to the county fair hoping for an opportunity, but the phone kept complaining it was too hot. So
I haven't had that much problems, but yeah, I definitely have been seeing that.
Yeah, I was keeping it in a pocket. So, maybe you want to, I don't know, wave it around while you're in between shots or something.
Yeah.
It's doing that. I mean, what that tells you is it's doing a lot of work. It's doing a lot of work.
It's using all the phone.
Using all the phone. Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
So I was fortunate enough to see F1 last week.
You did see it. Good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I saw it at Skywalker Sound, and
nice.
So I admit I may be a little bit heavy-handed, given that I saw it in probably one of the nicest theaters in the world.
Certainly the best sounding theater in the world.
In some cases when the cars flew over, you can feel it in your feet. It's just and so it is an incredible place to see one. But I will say it's an incredible movie. I'm probably going to go back and see it I want to go see it and want to see what the big theaters do with this. So for me, seeing it in Dolby, in a Dolby theater, and also I really want to see it in IMAX theater because the bass is so heavy, but the surround is so good. It is an incredible movie. And
have you ever seen an F1 race in person?
No, I've not.
Yeah, because it is very, very. The TV doesn't reproduce the sound at all. So I would actually be very curious to hear what it sounds like at the theater.
And the reason I wanted to recommend it is that I don't know how well this is going to translate to a smaller screen. Yeah. Like there are so many shots that are big screen shots, and it's interesting that Apple went down this path of something that we know is going to come out. We're all going to get as part of Apple TV Plus or whatever, but. If you get the opportunity to see it in a big, like at an IMAX, I would highly recommend taking the advantage of it because it's wow. I was truly, I was interested in the movie. Apple's pushing it so hard. Now I understand why. Like it's a really good movie.
Alex Lindsay says that's impressive.
Good. Can't wait to see it.
Here's the interesting thing about the visual effects is that they were seamless. Like you just, there's so much that they did physically because they were shooting this at the races, and I think that they even had like a pod on the track and so on and so forth for some of the shooting. And so they had a lot of this was very physically done, but even with the digital effects, it just doesn't feel, it's not one of those ones where the physics isn't right or the textures aren't right or the, everything just kind of seamlessly, comes together. And and again, from a pure sound and visual perspective. And I will say, I'll be interested to see what people think. I'm even though I got a little bit of tight on that last VR thing, I'm pretty heavy. It doesn't bother me to see a lot of big screen movement. But there's a lot of it. I mean, they put those cameras are on those cars, and you really feel like the energy that you would have. I don't know what the energy would be like. I've been in Indy. We've done some stuff at Indy cars. I've never been in it.
It's probably very similar. Yeah, we went to the Vegas F1 last year, and that's an amazing experience.
Sonoma Raceway is like 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah. There's something about F1 though. Those cars are. Powerful.
I think it'll be really interesting. I can see how this is Apple's big experiment in this area. Is that I really didn't have a lot of interest in F1. And then I saw the movie and I was like, oh, I really want to see the next F1. Because you feel like it, like there's some drama there and you feel like there's all these, you understand it. It's like when you understand it better about what's happening or what it takes to do it, then you're more interested in actually seeing it. And so I can understand where Apple is coming from there. So it'll be interesting to see if other people feel that way. But it is, I would recommend if you can see it in a theater, see it in the theater. I don't say that very often. I see maybe 3 or 4. I used to see a movie every week, and now I see a movie, every quarter maybe. And this is definitely if I had to choose over the summer season, this is definitely one of the ones that I would think about.
Very nice. Now I really want to see it.
Me too.
I'm sad that my connection to Lucas Sound is no longer at Lucas. I would have loved to have seen it in that theater, an amazing theater. Yeah. Jason Snell, pick of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat and just pick a feature that's in macOS 26 in beta, which is shortcuts that use AI. I did this today and yesterday. The idea that you can build a shortcut, in my case, I wanted to build a shortcut as part of my blogging workflow that will generate an alt text description of the image that I'm uploading. I already have an automatic uploader and resizer and all of that, but the alt text space is blank. And I thought, well, this would be easy and interesting. And so you can use private cloud compute, which will accept an image input. It is funny dealing with AI, right? Because AI doesn't follow your instructions. It's like a kind of a questionable assistant. It'll do stuff for you, but not maybe exactly. So I'm like, don't use double quotes, have it be only one sentence. And then it gives me responses back that are like 4 sentences with double quotes. I'm like, what are you even doing? But, it's shortcuts. And so I actually ended up with a prompt that works pretty well. And then when it's done with that prompt, it counts how many characters are in the response. I changed it from a sentence to just like make it 300 characters or less, something like that. And then if it's too many characters, it actually submits that caption again and says, here's some alt text I got. Can you make this shorter under this number? And then at that point, it actually does a pretty good job, but you got to double bag it. You got to double filter it. And then at the end, there's a step where it takes double quotes and makes them single quotes, because you can tell it not to use double quotes because that'll break the alt tag, but it still will sometimes. So you got to protect against that. And it really gave me a sense of like the power and also the just bizarre nature of AI, that like it can look at an image and generate alt text it's incredible. And for screenshots, I specifically say, like, if it's got a screenshot, include the text of the screenshot. That's going to be very helpful. Thank you very much. And it does it. It's really amazing. And then from run to run, it just behaves bizarrely. And that is not because it's Apple's model. It's because it's an LLM and it does that. But what I love about it is my automation to upload images to my website now has alt text baked into it. And you know what? It's good. It's really good. And I couldn't do it before. And I know you could have done this with third-party stuff before. But the beauty of this, for me, is that this is just going to be stock on people's devices this fall. And like, I know Alex is out there, and Alex is an LLM and image generation astronaut. Like, and I know I have other friends who are like that, where they're like, oh, you could have wired this up to the command line and done this and all that. It's like, that's all true. But there is something that is next level about saying, here is a shortcut that you can run on any device that is running 26 when it comes out. And it does all these AI things, and you didn't have to install anything or register for anything. It just does it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. I think cool. You're right that the utility AI that just does these little things and you can use natural language to create it is going to be life-changing for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that you can pop any kind of request into a shortcut. Like, this is not the only way to do user automation. It's just one little aspect of it. But there are so many things that those of us who've been doing Apple scripts or shell scripts or Python scripts or shortcuts for a while, where there are moments that are just kind of like not able to be done because it requires something that we can't program. And to have the ability to just hand an image to an Oracle and say, describe this for me, and let it sit in the middle of an existing workflow that you built, which is what I did here. It's like, I've got a whole thing that it resizes and optimizes my images for the right size. It builds the HTML code. It puts it on the clipboard or inserts it into BBEdit. Like, all of that is there. All I did is insert one step where it goes, run the alt text shortcut. And now I've got alt text in all of my image tags that will describe it for people. It's pretty awesome. So I'm very excited. I'm excited about a lot of stuff that's coming in 26. Having used the betas for a couple of weeks now, but this one just is the one that blew me away, where I had that moment where I'm like, oh my God, I have stuff that I can fix with AI. And again, I could have done it before, but it would have been, well, install this and run this and all that. And I love that this, I can literally pass to a friend who's running 26 and say, run it. And that's it. That's all, because it's stock. And it's really great to be on the cutting edge, but there is so much power in having features that are part of the stock build of an operating system, because a lot of people are just never going to install whatever or pay extra for whatever. And we can all do that. But like, this is just there for anybody. That's pretty awesome.
Nice.
So shortcuts.
I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
In 26.
Well, that's it for the show. On that note, no AI in our show, though, I'm proud to say. In fact, as AI continues to flood our lives, and of course we do a show about AI called Intelligent Machines, because I think it is really interesting. It's nice to know there's a place you can go where there's just humans sitting around talking. And that's what we do right here. If you're into the Apple Macintosh ecosystem, or the iPhone ecosystem or the iPad or the Apple TV or the Apple Watch, this is the place. Every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch live if you're in the club on the Discord, but there's also YouTube for everybody, open to all. Twitch, TikTok, X.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Kick. Watch where you like. Chat with us in all of those places. We can see your chats, and we welcome them. But, of course, even if it's going to build up and you're going to have guilt, you should still subscribe to the podcast, just because I don't think we monetize the... Patrick, do we monetize the live viewers? I don't think we're able to. And it's only a small fraction of the audience. So download the show if you would. Go to your favorite podcast player. And if you really want to help us, leave us a 5-star review. Help spread the word. You can also get it from our website, twit.tv/MBW. That counts. Or watch on YouTube. There's a YouTube video feed, and that's a good way to share clips of the show and so forth. However you get it, I hope you will. I hope you'll join us every Tuesday for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko is at ihnatko.com, soon to be open to the public.
Yep, DNS drops in a few days, I think.
In a few days, the DNS
Unless
drops.
there's something I don't know about. There's the DNS switchover.
Nice.
So.
Exciting. Well, by next week, we'll have something to talk about.
Hopefully, again, I have to backfill a few things, but this within... Anyway, step by step, we're very, very close. It's slouching very close to Bethlehem at this point. Yes.
Well, great to have you, Andy. Thank you so much. Stay cool on a very, very hot day in most of America. Alex Lindsay is at officehours.global answering questions every morning. Anything particular you want to plug?
We did a concert on Saturday. I'm not going to.
How'd that go?
It went well. It was.
That was with your daughter.
My daughter's band, Joystick Failure, is.
What a good name!
Yeah. So,
oh my God, that's a good name.
And so they played at a studio, Airship Laboratories over in Richmond, and so it's not really a concert. It's more of you get to listen to them record, right? Because they played the song a couple times and they played another song a couple times, and you get to just kind of watch them live, kind of figuring stuff out. It's the first time we had gone over there without. And so,
is that your daughter in the front?
No, that's the lead singer of Story.
Story. Where's your? There she is. I see her in the back.
If you scan for her, you'll probably see her because she'll be over. She's probably just out of frame at the moment. I think she's working on an amp at the moment. This is in between songs, but you can see my daughter there with the guitar there. So
very nice. So, isn't this exciting?
So it was.
Oh man, there she is.
And we were testing, a lot of it was just the first time we had gone in there. We're going to put up some stuff that's cleaned up and everything else in the next little bit of time, but it's a very talented band. So anyway.
Are they all high school kids?
They're all high school. There's one of the reasons we wanted to capture it was because about half of them are graduating. So this is the last time this band in this configuration. So my daughter and Story are still in the band, but I think everybody else is graduating. So it'll still be the band, but it'll be a different band next year. So anyway, it's fun.
How fun is that? That's so awesome.
Yeah, so we'll leave this raw one up until the end of the week, and then we're going to take it down and put up the actual songs that we ended up saving.
It's on the Office Hours.
It's on our website,
YouTube.
On our YouTube channel. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Officehours.global is the website. YouTube.com/@officeHoursGlobal is the YouTube channel.
Greetings.
There's lots of video, lots of information. Every day, constant. Barrage, a stream of everything you'd ever want to know about everything in the world. Thank you, Alex. Jason Snell is at sixcolors.com, sixcolors.com/Jason for his podcasts.
Yes.
Anything particular you'd like to mention?
Monday's episode of Upgrade with Mike Hurley on Relay FM.
Produced on iPad.
We dove deep into discussions about what Apple should or shouldn't acquire, including Perplexity, but also way beyond that. We both made some sort of wild suggestions about things that Apple should actually consider acquiring. So if you'd like to hear us spend Apple's money, the Upgrade program is there for you.
Very nice. Very nice. Sixcolors.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you next time. It has been my long and solemn duty to tell you, get back to work. Because break time is over. Bye-bye. Get your tech news exactly how you want it with TWiT.tv. Tech News Weekly with Micah Sargent delivers quick hit coverage and exclusive journalist interviews, giving you the inside scoop on breaking tech stories in under an hour. Now, for deeper dives, I hope you'll join me, Leo Laporte, and a great panel of tech industry experts. That's every Sunday with This Week in Tech. We'll break down everything from AI breakthroughs to privacy concerns to cybersecurity alerts in the tech world's longest-running and most trusted tech news roundtable. So, efficient or in-depth? The choice is yours. Subscribe to both shows wherever you get your podcasts, and head on over to our website, twit.tv, for even more independent tech journalism.